It's Friday night, so that means the weekend has started on Sportzwire Radio, and we're getting you ready for all things related here. Literally everything tonight. We're literally going to talk everything. Certainly to start things off, though, in the first hour, we have a lot to talk about here when it comes to the fallout from WrestleMania. AEW and made some news that I'm not sure they'll recover from. We'll talk about that. Plus, what you saw this past week on Raw and SmackDown. And to talk about all of it here with us, he is in our Hall of Fame. He is our senior wrestling analyst. He even dabbled for a period of time in the wrestling world. And he's also the host of the Hockey Fan Chat. I am talking about none other than Mr. Randy Dillon, who's almost looks like he's preparing early for the 5 o'clock shadow and playoff season in hockey for playoff beards. I mean, Randy, I know the Canucks are going to the playoffs. I'm not quite sure about the Capitals. I'll talk about them later, but it looks to me as if you might be preparing for the playoff beards as we are kind of getting into the playoffs pretty much here throughout on Sportswire Radio. But how are you, my friend?
Tom, I'm doing good. Like you said, WrestleMania, what a show that was. Raw was pretty good. We have the clown shit that AEW kind of threw out this week, and SmackDown was pretty good. The playoffs are right around the corner. Little sad yesterday, but I'm excited. It's a great time.
Great time to be a sportsman, a sports fan, and unfortunately, we'll have some relocation news, which has really been the talk of, I think, social media, also in the NHL. We'll get to that in the second half of the show at some of the TF Takes guys and obviously Chris Pizzea, and we'll see who else joins in on that. But we're going to obviously talk wrestling to start things tonight, Randy. And, I guess where to begin. But as we always do, let's talk about the current. Let's talk about SmackDown. There was certainly a major shakeup tonight in the Bloodline. We maybe got a sense in where Bayley goes from here. Cody opened up the show once again, and we kind of got maybe another shot at seeing LA Knight and AJ Styles. And give me your reactions on some of what we saw tonight and much more from you.
SmackDown was, I think, a pretty good show. I'll give it a solid 7.5 out of 10.
All right, from you usually give it an 8 or a 9. So,
I'm trying to be a little harsher from TJ, so I'll give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Listen, Cody opening the show was great. I think what it is setting up for is what could be the long-term plans. I know the rumor mill is out there. Are we going to see Rock versus Roman next year at WrestleMania? Or the plans have shifted? Are we going to see Cody versus The Rock? Because listen, this build-up with Roman and Rock, it feels Roman and Cody. I felt it was more about Cody and The Rock. And I think they still have a chapter to tell here.
No question about it. I mean, obviously the handshake and sort of that tense moment there, and we certainly got the Bloodline situation. We'll certainly come into it in a second, but I mean, long-term plan you spoke about is Cody being the champion, and certainly the fans really responded tonight. They obviously responded on Raw, and I mean, is that the play here? I mean, we're going with Cody. We're just going to let him ride it. Obviously, we even kind of saw the reference to it on SmackDown tonight when we used to see Roman having the main office, the main locker room, and it was actually Cody. So what's your impressions on that before we start saying a lot of it, as we see people are starting to tune in now? So give me your thoughts on some of it.
I think it's the right move. Listen, this guy, he's been the face of the company now for over a year, since last year after WrestleMania when he didn't win. He said it on Ariel Wari interviewed. He said the comment, John Cena be the champion without the belt. He showed it. Now he has the belt. And listen, I don't think fans are turning on Cody anytime soon. I know Dominic Cody, otherwise known as Dijak in NXT, said the fans are going to turn on Cody. But I think the fans are set behind Cody. You're going to have.
But doesn't that happen though in wrestling? Isn't there a point to be made that it does happen from time to time? I mean, we've seen The Rock. I mean, The Rock came in and he necessarily lost some of the fans. I mean, we've seen this before, though. I mean, there is a point to that.
There will be a time. I guarantee we saw it with Cena. We definitely saw it with Roman Reigns when he.
I mean, Bret Hart. Once upon a time, this happened with. I mean, fans got tired of Austin toward the end of the Attitude Era. I mean, Hogan, certainly there was a lot of that. I mean, maybe The Undertaker, maybe the only exception of really the fans never got tired of.
That's the only other one I could think of.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio, good one. I mean, Rey Mysterio is universal.
I would say for the next maybe year or two, you're safe. Unless something crazy happened where they make a huge mistake whatsoever, even if it is LA Knight for Cody, I don't think fans are going to be so upset if it's not LA Knight if Cody gets the win over there. I'm most likely thinking it'll be AJ Styles as Cody Rhodes come Backlash. But I think for the next year and a half or so, you're safe with Cody being the top face and not fans turning.
But are you all right with that? And I'll get to comments in a second. But are you all right with that, AJ Styles? I mean, do people really say, "Oh, AJ Styles can beat Cody Rhodes"? I mean, that's almost to me like, "Are you throwing a bone toward AJ Styles?" Okay, fine. You're keeping him in the edge of main event title contention, but he's had very little momentum. He got some tonight, sure, but what do you make of that?
Yeah, I was thinking about this all week, and even on Raw, I'm like, who would be the first one to challenge Cody? Because he really kind of competed with everyone on Raw. You're going to try to stay away from that bloodline angle, so not going to be Jimmy or Solo anytime soon. I was thinking, okay, maybe could you kind of throw it to a guy like Austin Theory? Could you kind of throw it to maybe a guy like Karrion Kross? But they really have no momentum. Santos Escobar doesn't have it. I thought Rey Mysterio might be an interesting choice just because their history, two baby faces there. But I think if the right move is you want a good baby face heel, AJ Styles might be the best bet.
Fair enough, and we're joined here, of course, by, he says he's the real Craven. Usually it's Chris Craven, but we're talking about the coach. And, Coach, are you really driving in for real, like Grand Theft Auto style? Or, I thought maybe you probably were a Grand Theft Auto player, I would have to imagine. But good to see you.
I just got off work.
Oh, well, good to see you, Coach. I hope you're doing safe travels out there on the road, and hope you're doing well. I know a lot of stuff has been going on out there where you are, but good to see you. We were talking about, obviously, the fallout from WrestleMania. I know you've been busy, but we were talking about Cody Rhodes. I'll just get your thoughts before I get to some comments. And you like how they've rolled out Cody Rhodes as champion so far?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't comment on anything from SmackDown. I was at work. I haven't seen it yet.
Fair point.
Raw, WrestleMania was epic. WrestleMania, in my opinion, delivered in a lot of areas. I think it's funny. I had a lot of people calling me this past weekend going, "You son of a bitch." Like, because, I predicted so many things that happened, and they were like, did you know?
Well, did you tell them that you're a two-time Hall of Famer and you've actually wrestled, and that's how you might have an instinct on things? Did you tell them that? Maybe that would have helped, right?
I just understand the psychology of how the wrestling business works. It's like I told you guys. I told you guys a couple months ago. I said they're separating the tag belts. I knew that was happening. I knew that a heel team and a face team were going to make away with one's going to get there's going to be a heel team gets one set and a face team gets the other set. I knew that Austin wasn't going to be there as many times as some people think he was going to be. Wasn't going to be Austin. And just for anybody's clarification, if anybody didn't know, Dustin Rhodes was there. He was in the skybox.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm sure he could be there. Yeah. Okay. All right.
He was there. He couldn't legally be seen on camera on WWE programming, but he was there.
Okay. That's a good point.
But, there was a lot of people that were cussing me out this past weekend. How the fuck did you know that shit?
Well, I've seen you on Sportswire in the past, and that's happened. People that, have your name, I'm sure, have done it under their breath.
Dude, I had everything called all the way down to Seth Rollins and McIntyre. I told you, Priest was cashing in on McIntyre. I was like, I knew what was going to happen. It's just the way it works. But even going into Mania thinking that I knew what was going to happen or predicting what was going to happen, Mania was still exhilarating and entertaining. And in some ways, the way that all the athletes performed was a thrill ride. Everything was great. It definitely delivered.
Absolutely, no question about that here. And let me get to some comments here as we're now live. And I want to thank everybody for starting to warm up here. This person, I'm going to just say that we're going to read your comment off and basically say sayonara to you, because obviously wrestling is fake. Well, you know what? We've got two guys that actually went out there and attempted to do it. And Coach's case has done a lot of it. And I'm going to say that when you go in the ring and you go out there and take a chop to the chest, or you go out there and take a bump, and you can say whatever you want. But until then, you can say screw off. Hello, Rev. Michael Christian. I know you, Michael. You actually were in a match today, and I'm probably going to be talking about a lot of it tomorrow. So thank you for tuning in. Ron Franklin, who wasn't at Mania, but was at the Fan Fest there over on Friday, said hello, Tom and Randy. What a weekend. Want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Big Tex, who was in a main event yesterday at DBW's Thursday Night Thunder Punch to kick the season off. But he had a good point, which we'll come to. We have to talk about Tama Tonga. Debut is Jacob Fatu coming in behind him to make what looks like a new bloodline. Yep, a new bloodline for sure. Yep, and Michael says we will talk tonight. Yes, off the air because I have you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So I want to make that clear, Michael. You're here tomorrow at 10, not after we're off the air. There's confusion there with that. But, I mean, I guess maybe we'll talk about it. Coach hasn't seen SmackDown, but are we seeing a new bloodline, you think, Randy? I mean, that's a good point from Big Tex.
Absolutely. I think this is the way you need to go because we even talked about this, Coach, like that tension between Rock and Roman where one or the other, like, they didn't trust each other, but they'll work with each other. And the only reason The Rock went along with Roman because of the belt. Now, Roman doesn't have the belt. The Rock is taking over. He was that Rock. He came out to say, Cody, I'm disappearing, but I'm coming back, and you better watch out. And I think this is what he's stating to say, this new bloodline that's going to form with, I can't pronounce his name, Jacob Tano, who's going to show up in Solo.
Jacob Fatu, we see him in who's the MLW World Champion. Tama Tonga, who's Haku's son. We saw him today, Coach, debut, and it was an emphatic appearance. Jimmy Uso's probably going to be maybe in an ER somewhere as we speak. But is that?
Do you guys think it's going to be Rock versus Roman at SummerSlam, or do you think it's going to be Rock versus Cody at SummerSlam?
It's a good question, and I think a lot of people are wondering that.
You know what, Coach? I was reading about this. They might even push Rock. Look, the original plan. They were thinking Rock and Roman for next year at Mania, but they might even push it the year further because they might want to do Rock versus Cody next year at Mania, from what I've read.
Well, we'll go back to what was said on Raw. Rock said he's going to come back, and when he comes back, he's going to come for Cody. So initially, I think, unless Roman stirs up some shit when he finally does reappear, unless he stirs up some shit with The Rock, then potentially I could see Rock going after Cody at SummerSlam with maybe, of course I see Cody going over on The Rock. I don't see them giving the title to Rock again. But I think that if not SummerSlam, definitely Survivor Series. Like I said, unless Roman stirs up some shit with The Rock, or I don't know. I would think that it would be Cody first. Maybe at Mania next year, you give The Rock and Roman, because The Rock's, clock's ticking, man.
Good point.
He ain't getting any younger.
Good point. And also, let me ask you guys this question on that, and people can certainly tune in and let us know what they think. But in terms of SummerSlam, I think is the second biggest live premium show of the year, right, for WWE. So wouldn't the move then to go Rock and Cody, because kind of what piggybacking off what you said, Coach, is that you don't really have Rock for maybe as much as you would time-wise compared to Roman. You've also worry about the abilities in the ring in terms of what he's in terms of whether it's training, whether it's how many matches he's actually had, and this would probably be the appropriate time to do it. And it's also because you're going into fall season, you're obviously going into new network deals, and that's a great way to sell and advertise that as well. And you obviously also, again, as I stated, have the second biggest live premium show of the year. What do you guys think on all that?
Yeah.
I think it all depends on Rock's schedule, because it depends if he's going to be available for SummerSlam, if he's going to be back in time. I think that's going to be the key here. Because the plan of what I read, he's going to have a match this year. They just don't know when. I think if the card's laid out right, it's going to be that fall show in Saudi Arabia where they would debut show him there. That's the only thing I could think of.
I don't know. I say that The Rock did look good on night one. He actually did look good in his performance. He wasn't. It's not like you saw the old man signs, showing, or he wasn't exposed. He was able to go out there.
Well, considering, and you know this better than anybody, I mean, you've obviously, done a lot in this sport. For somebody that hasn't had a real match in over a decade, yeah, I think he did a fairly bang-up job. I mean, find me somebody at his age who hasn't had that much ring experience and a lot of ring rust, no question, to do what he did. Sure, it was in a tag team match, obviously, albeit, but I think at the end of the day, considering all the circumstances, he did a pretty bang-up job, and I think he's got to get a lot of credit for that, and certainly those that trained with him to get him ready for that particular match and everything he did. Go ahead, Coach, jump in.
Well, that's the smart thing he did this time versus back in, what was it, WrestleMania 28, 29, when he wrestled Cena back-to-back. That was the one smart thing he did this time. And he had talked about that in press conferences and stuff and interviews, that he went through like 12 or 13 weeks of reconditioning his body, breaking off all that rust, loosening up the old body and getting himself ready. Smart move. Similar to a boxer training before a heavyweight title fight. You're getting yourself prepared for the beating. And he was able to get himself loose and be rust-free and be able to go out there and perform at a high quality. And he did good. He rocked it good performance-wise at Mania. I think going forward, I think The Rock will probably wind up continuously doing something like that unless who knows, he may stay in ring shape on his own personal time outside the company by keeping himself in a regular regimen, especially if he's going to pull off more of these matches. Now, I've heard two different pieces of information in the last week. One, The Rock may make an appearance at SummerSlam. He may be ready to go by SummerSlam. The other one that I heard says that, according to some wrestling reporter that I read, that The Rock wouldn't be ready to go until the fall based upon his schedule. So I don't know which one's true. Only The Rock knows that. But whether you got it at SummerSlam or you got it at Survivor Series, I do think between now and next year's Mania, I think it would be safe to assume, or even smart to assume, that there's a high probability that you're going to get Rock and Cody, and you're going to get Rock and Roman at two different separate times.
Let me ask you guys let me ask you both a follow-up question. You can take it whatever way you want. When would you want it? When would you want it?
I think me personally,
yeah,
I would want it at Survivor Series.
And why is that? Would you want it sooner?
Because the Survivor Series is sensitive to The Rock. That's his debut. It was when he debuted.
1996. Yep, sure.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, I do think there's some significance to Roman Reigns and the Shield. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they debut at Survivor Series? Right. So I kind of think to add that history, they both had memorable. They both have high spots at Survivor Series. Why not make it Survivor Series? To be honest, I think SummerSlam should focus around the World Heavyweight title. This PPE, this Premium Live event, this PLV WrestleMania was morely focused around what happened with Cody and finishing the story. I think the next big one should be about the World Heavyweight title, which, as I predicted, and I think it's going that route, maybe if it doesn't turn into a fatal four-way at first, but a four-way feud between Punk, McIntyre, Rollins, and Priest.
Now we have to bring up one point on that, is that it came out, I believe it was yesterday, that Drew McIntyre still doesn't have a contract extension.
I have to think he's going to resign at this point. The amount of push they're giving him, I can't remember when they, other than Brett maybe in '97, but because he was the champion, that whole thing with Shawn was going on, and they even talked about him leaving. The fact that they're doing a show in Scotland in about 2 months, the fact that they're keeping him around, they're giving him the big push, they're putting him in a big feud with a guy like CM Punk. You don't do that to someone who's eventually going to leave and walk out.
I hate to say this, and you guys can probably scream at me all you want because we're live on the air, but could you maybe potentially say it's one last, let's say, throw money out there like there's no tomorrow from Tony Khan?
No, I think Tony Khan doesn't have a prayer after everything from that. Don't even start.
I
After
understand
everything,
that, but money talks.
After, do you know how much? You may know. Do you know how much shit Tony Khan and AEW right now is catching for leaking that security footage of Young Bucks?
For sure.
And what Jungle Boy and the Young Buck, and Punk. They are being ripped apart in the wrestling community right now. The whole company is. I don't see. I'll tell you what. We've talked about this before.
Uh-huh.
I think Tony Khan's he's going to need to sell his soul to the devil or have the biggest miracles from the Lord all Christ to fucking get himself out of the hole he's in right now. Just to have his company even have a chance, not guarantee a chance, but have a chance to survive.
Coach,
Brady,
I'm going to say this much because what they did on Wednesday was embarrassing because pretty much all you did was you made CM Punk look liable. Like
they were cheering his name.
He didn't say anything that was wrong. He said he went up to Jungle Boy. Why you want to pull this? Okay, you have a problem. Let's go. Punk. There was a shove. Punk choked him out. That was it. He pretty much did everything he did on the interview. The fact that you had to show this on live television is pretty much saying we're bitter. We want to see the backfire. It didn't. It looks horrible. I'm very interested in their television deal. If I'm Tom,
I like. Did either of you hear Kevin Nash's? Kevin Nash put a little post out about that yesterday. Did you hear about Kevin Nash's thing?
I didn't get a chance to hear it. What did he have to say, Kevin Nash?
He flat out said he just made a small social media comment. I think it was social media. It might have been so. It basically all he said was, "Yeah, you're a real smart promoter. You just aired the one guy. You just aired the one of the top guys in your competitive company or the company you're competing with, and send all your viewers over there to watch him." Yeah. Basically calling Tony Khan a dumb fuck.
Well, is that the equivalent of when Eric Bischoff basically had Tony Schiavone announce on Raw that Mick Foley was going to win the WWE Championship on Nitro, and then everybody went to Raw? Is that the same thing? And it was almost
it's similar in the way because the Polka Doom thing was just so bad that just killed it all. Because right after that, you had Hulk Hogan do the Polka Doom, and it just
two things happened Wednesday. One, Tony Khan showed how much of a petty ass bitch he is. Yep. And two, you just said anybody that watched AEW that wanted to know where Punk went or what happened with Punk, you just sent them over to watch WWE. And it was like a big turnoff to them about anybody that likes AEW that was a fan of Punk. That was just like a giant turnoff. And you sent them over to where, you know what? I can get so many people right now are laughing at Tony Khan in the wrestling industry from all different levels, basically with the same message. You dumb, petty fuck.
What's that locker room thinking?
It's horrible.
I don't know.
Go ahead. I've read things. The fact is, the Young Bucks didn't want to go ahead with this, but Tony Khan pushed it. The Will Ospreay promo where he's calling about AAA saying, "I don't do the grind. The only thing you did was."
That was bizarre. That was a bizarre promo.
It's so bad right now that Tony Khan, this is all on him, that he can't get over the fact that you're losing right now to the company because you lost two guys who could have helped you, but because of differences, whatever, these two guys are help promoting you. and they're making you look like a fool. And
Let
you're
me ask
making
you guys
yourself
this
look like a
question, and I want to mention one of our listeners out there, Miss Angela Pink, is saying that our audio is a little bit behind, but I think it could be Coach's driving. So you're probably hearing some of the driving that he's out and about, but I'm sure when we get to the rest of the gang, you'll have the audio a little bit clearer because the rest of the guys in the second half of the show will be here in about 30 or 35 minutes. So we do apologize about that, Angela, and thank you so much.
Well, I can't stay the whole time anyway. I do have to get off here and go in this office here in a minute.
Anything you want to say, we'll let me and
Oh,
Randy.
no, say your comment. Say your comment.
So my comment was this. So this was my comment. Was there anything that Tony Khan could have gained by actually airing this video? I mean, at the end of the day, right? Sure, viewership went up yesterday, but we know it's going to tank for Dynamite next week because people are going to be, obviously the talk is what it is. So really at the end of the day, a short-term ratings boost was really a long-term PR failure, and especially a guy like Tony Khan who owns the Jaguars, who owns
his dad owned the Jaguars. Let's make that straight here. His dad owned the Jaguars.
But the family name's a part of it. So what could he really, at the end of the day, could have ever gained by airing something like this? That's my question.
Nothing.
And this was a failure. So who advised him? Couldn't there have been anybody in that company? You know what, Tony? I don't think that's a good idea.
It's the same thing when Vince did foolish things on I'm going to say his name. Vince McMahon did some foolish things on television because, listen, in the 5 years since AEW has been around when they first started, it was much needed because WWE was so stale, so bad, the product would just die.
I agree with you on that. Yes, we all agree on that. Absolutely.
To force us to say, now Vince McMahon leaving did help because Paul Levesque and Nick Khan were able to take control and really change things up. But AEW hasn't done anything to really improve themselves in the 5 years. They're still pretty much thinking they're just starting off. Everyone's enjoying what they like. It's different. But
it's a niche audience. It's an audience that is there that is for what they bring to the table, but there's nobody outside of that. They haven't, to use a different term, they haven't expanded outside of their base, and the base isn't big enough to really be in the same breath as WWE. People can say what they want. You guys can take this wherever you want. People can say what they have wanted about TNA and Impact, but there's no denying the fact that TNA Impact, in its peak, in its heyday, was a legitimate promotion. Nobody could take away the fact that TNA Impact, you want to call it whatever you want, I call it both, that they were building a company organically that had young talent from places like Ring of Honor and elsewhere, and built them up and gave them an opportunity, and they created things like the 6 Sides of the Ring and the X Division. There was things that TNA had created that allowed themselves to be a viable promotion. But ask yourself this, in the 5 years that AEW is around, we're all Wrestling Matters here on Sportswire, but ask yourself this, what has AEW created in the 5 years that would make themselves either viable or has done something completely out of the box other than paying wrestlers an absorbent amount of money to compete in a different promotion? What have they done?
Backstage brawls and controversy.
We have those on.
I say this again. WCW 2.0.
But it's not. You know what? But I would even argue to that WCW, at least, that promotion had success. That promotion had moments. Again, TNA Impact has been lampooned throughout the years. But at the end of the day, I just named you things that TNA.
Well, you just said what you said. Okay, so in the last, in our past, in the past of all these wrestling promotions,
correct.
The one thing, and I could be wrong on this, but from what I used to watch of TNA went in the business for themselves, and they did their own thing. They weren't going after any other promotion. They weren't taking cheap shots.
Jarrett said himself that he really didn't want to go to Mondays. He really didn't want to be competing against WWE. It was Dixie Carter, like a Tony Khan, had a lot of
Styles even said it, I think, on the Stone Cold podcast 2016. He said Dixie Carter was more of a fan, and she wanted to do things that a fan wanted.
And she got herself involved in storylines. She wanted this whole idea. It was her idea to bring in Hogan and Bishop. But Jarrett, he had a lot of problems with Hogan, going back to the whole thing with Vince Russo. So at the end of the day, TNA would probably, who knows? I mean, TNA, it's still around. We're very happy about
Yeah,
it.
I agree. I think Dixie Carter dragged TNA down tremendously.
100%.
But and then when you go to AEW, I'll tell you this. From what I saw Wednesday, and I usually don't watch AEW, but I actually, for some reason, I was at work, and I was slow night, and we were in the office, and one of the other guys had it on the air.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid attention a little bit. And in that time frame, I saw two things, major things, and you guys we've already mentioned them. Two things that basically you just shot yourself in the fucking temple. You got Will Ospreay out there. Shooting a promo against Triple H like he's going to have a match with him. Like he's in the middle of a feud with Triple H. Talking about what Triple H said off of Mania when he was at WWE World this past weekend.
Yeah.
And then, which I don't know, was that Will Ospreay or was that Tony Khan telling him to go out there and say shit? Who knows?
Will Ospreay.
Then again,
and you ever know Will Ospreay guys to be that type of guy that all of a sudden go out there and
it's the same thing with Adam Copeland 2 weeks ago, where he's like, "I love AEW. I came to AEW. I'm the most fun." It's just like
contrived.
Like why are he doing this promo of all people?
And then at the end of the, whatever other part of the show, you got the security footage of what happened with Punk. So basically, you have a chance to put on a great show. So yes, Tom, in reference to what you said about what Tony Schiavone did back in the 90s, you have the possibility to put on a great show, worry about your own, maybe try to pop off something good with some good ratings, and instead you spend a good amount of your show planning to basically rub the nuts of the other company that you hate and get everybody to go look at them.
It reeks of total desperation. It's a desperate move.
It's complete desperation. And I heard some shit around Monday night, and I hadn't watched AEW. I didn't watch AEW until Wednesday. But I heard some shit after Mania weekend that had to do with the possibility of what do you call it?
You okay on the road out there right now?
Oh yeah, I'm good. The possibility of I'm going to a parking lot.
Okay.
It was the whole possibility of there was a lot of people that were upset about things that were spoke about on Mania, right? People like, but not just spoke about, but for Tony Khan's position, you lost Punk. You fucked that relationship up because of obviously the way you do business. You fucked the relationship up because of what you did was apparently Cody left for his own personal reasons. Now Jade's gone. And
MJF we talked about, we don't know what's going on there.
And these three individuals had not only prominent spots on the WrestleMania card, but showcase-worthy matches that, Jade's debut, other than the Rumble, her main debut, her WrestleMania debut. And then you've got Punk interfering and being involved in a very dynamic setup for a story with McIntyre in the first match of day 2. And then you have Cody winning the guy who helped you start it, if not made it possible to start. Winning your opposing competition's championship, and you get in your first show out of the gun. Your first shot out of the gun on Wednesday is to fucking put more attention on WWE.
I know a couple of people want to talk, but this is what I want to say. Generalization to sum that up. You know what? This is even worse about this. It's not even about the fact that they aired the footage, which again it sounds like a boneheaded move. We all agree. But you brought in Mercedes Moné just a few short weeks ago. You killed all that, and it wasn't that long ago that you had all the feel-good momentum from Sting. So all of that is completely wasted now. You lost all that. Mercedes Moné is here, and there's zero momentum with that. You had all the feel-good stuff with Sting. That's all gone. And now you got this bad PR that ultimately I don't know how you come back from, but let me get to a couple of comments here. First, our buddy TBK, who did a great job earlier this week, which we aired on our internet radio station, Sportswire Radio. He had interviewed another Hall of Famer, the owner of Cutlery Championship Wrestling, Mr. James Barris. What a fantastic interview. That was a great interview. TBK does a great job with interviews. I want to make sure that we see more of that in the future, but got a break for a second, so I figured I'd comment real quick. The difference is WCW had a real chance. AEW is dead in the water. The only thing keeping it alive is the marks and Tony Khan's money. But yeah, we hit the nail on the head with that. Also, I want to come back to our buddy Big Tex. You could see morale is at an all-time low. Question though, who do you think will leave AEW next?
Malachi Black, I'm going to think, going to be the next one to leave. I think he signed a 3-year contract back in 2021. It's close to that 3 years is coming up.
And his wife is there also.
Selena Vega, then WWE. I read Brian Cage did resign with AEW, and I got to think because of money reasons. Listen, they're going to pay you a shitload of money to show up little. Sure. I would take it. Like, I'm not disagreeing these guys who are taking all this heavy payday to do a few shows a week. But if you're not going to be a star, if you're not going to be consistent, Ricky Stark reported to leave. Hook's now looking at opportunities of leaving AEW.
Wow. Well, that tells you a couple different things here. And also TBK, before I get to Ethan Sorensen, TBK wants to say, look, when WWE is saying that they are their only true competition, it shows just how bothered they are by whistleblower Copeland, Ospreay, and whiny Tony. So that's an interesting way to put it, and that's kind of.
I gotta go, guys. I'll be back next time.
Coach. I'll see you Monday. That was our coach, Chris Craven, the real Chris Craven. And Angela, if you're out there, you want to tell us the audio is probably a little better now because we are getting comments. So, real quick on that, what do you make of that?
It's true. Like, I don't know how AEW recovered. I don't even know what direction they go in to get the rating up, get the attention up, because your company right now is billed.
And you also said something else, the network deal. They don't have a network deal going into the end of the year. What do you think this is all going to mean for that? Because they still have not had a new television deal.
And I see Tony Khan put out a tweet, my friend tweeted, we were up by this many number, blah, blah. I'm like, the fact that you should have probably hit 1 million if you were airing this backstage because everyone wanted to
819,000?
The fact that it only got you 800,000 is, I think, a kind of a sad point with a minute clip. It doesn't do anything. Like, Copeland doing that promo was horrible. You'd rather bring in someone like Kenny Omega to do that promo because he was there from the beginning and not a WWE guy. Will Ospreay saying,
why not Jericho?
Jericho, because of his legal problem right now, you want to keep him off the mic because the fans are going to lose it on him. But Will Ospreay, his comments, and he even said this in an interview. I signed with AEW because it was better for me because I didn't have to relocate my family. They would allow me to come back and forth between the UK. Now you're going up there, I don't know what the grind is. I travel here and there. Like, you're shooting yourself in the foot, if anything. And the other thing is, you've had a relationship with AEW, so they've been in your ear since you've been with New Japan for the last little while. So of course you're going to give the benefit of doubt when how much talk have you had with WWE?
All right, let me get to a couple of questions here from our buddy Ethan Sorensen. Ethan wants to first of all say, how are we doing? Well, it wasn't Craven Rage. It was Chris Craven, our coach. And if you would have called him Craven Rage when he was here, he probably literally would have did far worse to what CM Punk wanted to do to Jungle Boy. So we'll give you a pass. And thank you, Ethan, for tuning in. And if you are out there, I want to thank you. Almost 100 people out there live. So if you're on Twitter or elsewhere, hit that sub button for us on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 657. It's kind of weird because I'll get like one new subscriber the last couple of days, then we'll lose another one. It's like really weird. I don't know what the algorithms are, but it's strange in that. But I have a good question from Ethan going back to WWE because AEW, we got the point. Who would you guys like to see Cody Rhodes defend his undisputed championship against? We kind of spoke about it briefly, but what would you like, Randy?
I think they had to pick a person. I think Rey Mysterio might have been the perfect option because, one, Rey is near the end of his career. It really ties some stories up, brings some history between Cody and Rey because Cody's first singles WrestleMania match was against Rey Mysterio back at WrestleMania.
But would you want to do face first face out of the box?
I think with Rey you can pull it off, and I think you can set up them with the Carlito and Rey match because I just feel like whoever goes against Cody first, they're not going to come out on top. You hope they can build some momentum. It's kind of like when Nakamura faced Seth. It was a great build, but by the great build, great story, but after the end, it kind of put him in no man's land.
Yeah, because you also had somebody in there that wasn't viable enough, wasn't believable. So you didn't have that, which is why I go back to AJ Styles. I'm not sure if that's the guy either. LA Knight, how will that go? So you're kind of in a tough box. But there's one other name that I could have certainly brought up that, I mean, we sort of was mentioned tonight a little bit, but to me, the guy that would be a great person for Cody Rhodes to go up with for a couple months is a man that he also has a lot of history with in Randy Orton.
I think they're going to save that for a little later down the road, because I think with Randy Orton, listen, it's very interesting with Randy Orton because you're in such a dynamic situation where could you give Orton a win and then give the belt back to Cody so he could get that 15-time world champion? Are we going to see a Randy Orton heel turn there? And
don't you have too many faces right now?
I think you have too many heels right now, to be honest, Tom. I don't think you have enough faces.
On SmackDown?
SmackDown? I don't think so. I think you have...
You don't think so? You don't think Orton being a viable contender for a few months, giving Cody a big win, a win against somebody that, he's obviously got a lot of history with, solidifies him. So if you're going to go back to the road of the SummerSlam, if it's going to be The Rock, I mean, I don't know. Where they're going.
I'm doubtful it's going to be The Rock at SummerSlam. From what I've heard, Logan Paul might be the option, but he's the U.S. champion. I think if you're going to do Orton versus Cody, save it for SummerSlam.
I mean, Logan Paul, there's history there because he had a match at Roman Reigns back in Saudi Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess you could go that route. I want to say hello to my buddy, Mr. Levi McDaniel. Of course, Levi McDaniel, one of our favorites on Sportswire Radio. I was watching some of the IMF's show on YouTube, which is on their page at IMF Wrestling 666. So make sure you follow the IMF gang over there. But a couple of points here. Cody should feud with Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and Finn Balor, but should ride it out Cody with Roman and The Rock.
Cody, Roman, Rock, you're waiting for the big time when the spotlight's on bright. Finn Balor, I think you kind of already did that with the Judgment Day last year when they had their problems. So I don't think you want to go back to that. Well, Orton's an option. You know what? One guy I'm thinking that this might work better in their favor. Maybe I was surprised a return like Sheamus. This might be a good spot for him. A return like Braun Strowman, just getting them back kind of in these spots.
Braun Strowman's in like no man's land. I mean,
Sheamus, he's been hurt. He had a very serious injury.
Sheamus, that's a good one. I want to say hello because he can actually comment on this because he's actually, I guess we can say it now, he's dabbled in the wrestling world. He's actually wrestled in front of thousands of people. He's actually been a guy that's been in some main events. And I'm talking about, of course, the man that always stays trendy, Mr. Alan Michaels, who's here. I'm sure has a few.
Hello.
How you doing, Alan? Alan, you okay?
Doing pretty good.
Have you been hit by somebody in a ring? You kind of pulled your teeth out there for a second. But,
yeah, it's my grills I got from the TikTok shop.
Good enough. But I want to we have a bunch of comments here, and we'll bring the rest of the gang on in about 15 or 20 minutes. But Mr. Alan Michaels, now that we can call you Alan Michaels again, what was your impressions on Mania, and where we go with here from Cody Rhodes? Obviously, a lot of talk about who's the first challenger that Cody Rhodes may potentially have, and what do you think on that, Alan Michaels?
We thought about, the lead up to Mania. We thought about what happened at Mania.
Yes.
We were all kind of on board with what's going to happen. But, this is the thing that no one ever talks about what happens after Cody wins, and it's kind of been put on the back burner. Everyone's just so wrapped up in him finishing the story that, him starting a new one is kind of a, unfamiliar territory. It's like, who do you have go against the guy who just,
figure out the last 10 minutes. We've been trying to figure that out. And you've obviously been in a man that, you have been in some companies and you've had some big matches. So you know how this goes. You know the wrestling business. I mean,
I think you send Gunther after him first, man. I honestly think you send Gunther after him.
Why? Why Gunther?
I don't know. It's a great first challenger for Cody to get over. I mean, if he sits there and, pins Roman, finishes the story, out there has a great probably 3-month, 4-5 month feud with Gunther. that really solidifies Cody as the guy.
Well, I got a couple of comments to follow up on that. Speaking of people I want to say hello to, my guest, guys, Monday afternoon, Monday night, our time. Speaking of world champions, he's also a fellow world champion. He is the CCW Underground Heavyweight Champion of the world, Mr. Jam Dog himself, who had put a nice post out on Facebook, and he gave me some credit there. So thank you, Jam Dog, for that. He says, evening, gentlemen, and he's up at 3:51 a.m. watching us. So, yeah, well, that's what we love our wrestling fans. We love our wrestlers on this platform, and interesting one here, Cody versus CM Punk.
I just think it's down the road, but not
yet. Not yet
because
for you
Punk,
guys.
you have so many different feuds you can hit. You have McIntyre already hitting. Eventually he's going to fight Seth. So I think we're going to see Punk versus Kevin Owens. We saw on SmackDown a little tease, Kevin Owens just throwing that shirt off the table. So
yeah, I think Kevin Owens could, that would be interesting. We have the draft coming up. It's a good point.
And I think that's the other thing as well. We don't know what the rosters are going to look like come the draft. I think we're just trying to get through the next few weeks. And then after the draft, then we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen.
For you, Mr. Michaels, you want to see Cody and CM Punk, or you rather just see Levi's picture of the woman boxing?
Cody versus Punk would be pretty cool, but I just don't think there's enough build up to even make that happen. Or the obvious story is Punk and McIntyre, Punk and Rollins. That's the obvious.
Yeah, we were speaking about that before you came on the air. Yeah. That's a good point. And Ethan Sorensen's obviously got to find a way to work John Cena in here, and he says that if Triple H wants to have John Cena's last run, I think that Cena versus Cody would be good.
I think if Cena beats Cody, you might as well just bury Cody at that point.
Yeah, you pretty much might as well make him start us again at that point. Because
if The Rock isn't beating Cody, why would Cena beat Cody?
I think Cena's at a point in his career, and I think he realized this, like, even when he came back in 2021, he realized, like, do I want to beat the 16-time record? Yes. But I also realized the company's going in a different direction. I'm not going to be here with the title much. And he was around when you saw Lesnar coming back and forth. It doesn't make sense. So I think if it makes sense that an opportunity comes to give John Cena the belt due to injury or something else, absolutely. But I think just a clean win doesn't make sense.
Let me ask you guys this question, because we have a little bit more time left before the rest of the guys come on, and Randy's going to come on at some point toward the end of the show, because there's actually a lot of hockey talk I want to get into, some relocation talk and some other things. But we have a new bloodline, it looks like we're on the verge of. We saw Tama Tonga, and there's Jacob Fatu is signed with WWE. We saw Paul Heyman lose his cell phone from Solo Sikoa, and the cell phone's broke, and Jimmy Uso's probably in a hospital, not to be seen for months at a time, I suppose. And what do you guys think of this possible new reorganization of the bloodline?
Depending on how they play it, it could be, great content, or I don't know with not having Roman, it's going to be hard to really take that group seriously at first.
Why do you say that?
I mean, yeah, the bloodline, the whole faction was great, but The Rock's not going to be there every week. The Roman's not going to be there. So who's really going to carry that group? Jimmy, like you said, is probably going to be out for a little bit. So you really expect, like, Solo or, Jacob Fatu, I'm a huge fan of, but, like, he hasn't got to that main stage yet. He still might be relatively unknown to the WWE universe. So they're not going to respond to him as well as, like, an indie fan watching. So you have to really think who's going to carry that group.
An AEW fan, you're saying?
Yeah. Like, who's going to carry that group? I don't see Solo carrying it. I mean, unless you have Paul Heyman at the front runner, and they're going to turn Solo into some big monster.
You make a good point there, Alan, because from what I've heard from the Hall of Fame and all that, Paul Heyman has no plans. He wants to stay with Roman Reigns, which it makes sense. But you're absolutely right, because Paul Heyman kind of done that heavy work when Roman's not on television. He's kind of been the constant there, and I think you need someone to be that speaker if Roman or The Rock's not there.
Well, and Solo's not a talker, obviously. I mean,
the most he's talked, I think we've seen all in the last 2 years.
I was gonna say the same thing. And Tama Tonga, the universe doesn't know him, and Jacob Fatu, again, like you said, Alan, I know him from his wars with Alexander Hammerstone, who we share a mutual connection with my buddy Vito Fratelli, who's feuded with Mr. Hammerstone. But these guys aren't necessarily The Rock, and I don't even know what we're getting from The Rock in terms of his appearances with the bloodline. So How would Heyman leave the bloodline? That wouldn't make any sense. So
the only way you can make Heyman leaving the bloodline make sense is if Braun Breaker's involved. I feel like Braun Breaker would be the only way for Heyman.
Well,
to
Braun
really stray
Breaker was
away.
impressive tonight against Cameron Grimes. What were some other things that caught you guys' attention between Raw and SmackDown? Liv Morgan attacked Rhea Ripley, and that was maybe notable.
R-Truth, man, the guy cannot stop making me laugh.
He
Yeah.
was next. He was next on my list, but go ahead, Randy.
No, sorry, Tom. For the thunder. Yeah, R-Truth, that was just funny how he just kind of snuck his way there, and I love Priest reacting to thing. We ain't doing this again. It looks like the Judgment Day is coming to an end because you see him and Rhea now holding the belt, and Balor, McDonough, and Dom is kind of like, they're kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? They lost a 6-man tag team match, so.
Fair enough. And let me get to another point from Ethan Sorensen, kind of what we were talking about, but we'll let it go anyway. I have another question, Tom and the gang. What did you guys think of Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa, Jimmy Uso from the Bloodline, and then bring in Newman? Well, we kind of talked about it, but what would you guys generally want to add on that?
It's going to be interesting how it's going to work, as Alan points out, because we don't know a lot of these people coming into the Bloodline. How is it going to work if Heyman's not going to be involved with it?
What do you say, Alan?
It just all depends on how they do it, because now that Roman's like kind of, out of the question, that would leave the head of the table, still open. I guess.
Are you applying for head of the table? Because you obviously have ring experience. You wrestled.
Definitely not. But
why not? Listen, we have a clip on TikTok with us with 30,000 views. I mean, you wrestled in a company. You've gotten thousands of views. You helped them get ratings. I mean, you are a ratings machine.
Hey, as much as I love to be at the head of the table, I'm gonna leave that to my boy main event Jey Uso. I think it'd be a crazy
you gotta
turn.
make sure you focus on at the table eating the most burgers or most crystals over Big T, because the guys are backstage and they're coming on here in a few minutes. You gotta focus on winning that eating contest, which is gonna be on May the 24th, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Which I even hear from a birdie that you might be getting some wrestlers that you served once in a locker room with to work with them, that they might even want to commentate as well on this.
Hey, you never know what can happen. It's gonna be a crazy live event.
No, it's gonna be very live.
Only on Sportswire.
I appreciate that plug for us, and thank you to everybody sharing. That's almost 100 people tuned in. So, anything else for you guys that you're watching this week in wrestling before we get to the rest of the gang here in a few minutes?
The one thing. Oh, sorry, I'll let you go first.
You could. What I was going with that bloodline thing is though, like it leaves a spot open for the head of the table, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could be a crazy turn if Jay, will return the bloodline, assuming the head. Because that was like kind of what he wanted from the whole jump, was kind of be the head of the table. And now that the spot's open, I could see him kind of sliding back.
Draft
and being
coming up.
Main event Jey Uso, maybe he could be Cody's first opponent, actually. I mean...
it's clever. It's clever. What do you say, Randy? It's clever. I don't know.
It's interesting, but I think right now he is so hot on what he's doing. Why break it? He's one of the top merch seller. His shirt's just on. The Yeet is on fire. I just think for them, drag this out with Jay at the main event as much as you can. And also, he's facing Priest as well, I think, come Backlash after winning the Fatal 4-Way on Raw. Tom, the one thing I want to add, the thing I'm interested in with some things with NXT, because we saw the draft, the lights of Roxanne Perez, Ilya Dragunov.
They're available, yep.
And I'm interested in these two trying to come in, especially Dragunov. I think Dragunov definitely someone, if he come to the main roster, could really make an impact.
How about Dragunov and Sami Zayn, possibly?
That'd be a pretty good match.
Dragunov, Gunther, round 3, their first 2 matches.
I was going to say, that was my next one. You got some endless possibilities there. And we're joined right now by the rest of the TSF Takes in the Sportswire gang, and we're going to hang on tight in a few minutes. We'll get to the rest of the gang, but we want to finish up some of the things on wrestling. But for you guys, both in wrestling, anything else you guys want to share for the audience before we get to closing thoughts? And Randy, we're going to bring you back on in a little while for hockey. Took us a lot to talk about in the hockey world. A lot going on in hockey. So we're going to get to the Met memory, I promise. We're going to get to the Met contest, but I got a lot of hockey talk to get into for a change. We're actually going to probably do everything today. I got some football news. I got some baseball, do a little bit of basketball going on right now. You got some, obviously a lot in the hockey world, but anything else for the wrestling gang you guys want to share?
Yeah, the fact that AEW basically just buried themselves. I mean,
Oh my God,
that just made
We went
CM
on
Punk
20
look like a
minutes on that. We were
gangster.
like,
we spent 20 minutes on that. Yeah, we basically spent 20 minutes on that, and it was definitely AEW for the short-term gain. It was the long-term PR disaster there. What a crisis there that they put themselves in for no apparent reason, really. So that was, that was kind of a sad boy moment for them, Alan, don't you think?
I mean, that was just a dumbass
They tried to change.
moment.
don't get
They
me
tried to
riled up
change.
again, Alan. I
They
was.
they tried to change lanes and tried to kind of be trendy, but it actually backfired on them. Almost like some wrestlers you've wrestled in a locker room with that can't run the ring ropes. Not
No
referring to
comment.
a
No
match that I
comment.
saw recently on No Return 5. But we're joined with the rest of the gang here, but want to finish off here with this. Honestly, Tom, I think that since Jimmy Uso is no longer in the bloodline, I would probably say that maybe Jimmy could show up on Raw and have a brother moment to be a tag team again. I don't know. I feel like they shouldn't go back to being a tag team at this point. It's time to move on from that for now. I think it's time. There will be a time and place maybe for the Usos to be a tag team again, but I think it's time to let Jay be main event Jay Uso. And if Jimmy wants to come back and fight the Bloodline, maybe that happens. But I think Jay should be where he is. He's really earned it. So I think that he should kind of not go back to being in a tag team. That's just my 2 cents on that. But okay, well, you know what? Obviously, Alan Michaels, I don't have to give you closing thoughts, but Randy, anything else one more thing, actually, one more thing before I get to TBK. And he says, let's not forget about all the Uncle Howdy teasers that are popping up more and more frequently. There are a plethora of contenders for Cody. It can go anywhere. We are mere days into the new HH era. Get it? The new Triple H, because everybody's now, you're hearing the new era reference, professional wrestling. I mean, who would have thought, right? Just 6 months ago, right? 7 months ago, we would be calling it professional wrestling again. I mean, I don't remember the last time, if ever, WWE has referred to themselves of professional wrestling. So now we actually hear new era professional wrestling. So it's a new day, it's a new era, as they say. So thank you for that. But all right, Randy, I want to give you some closing thoughts for now, but I'm going to bring you back on here probably in about 40 or so minutes. Now we'll talk a little bit with these different guys on different things, but anything else you want to share at the moment before we let you take a break and come back in a little while? You're the lucky one. You get a break to come back on.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure to get the opportunity to talk on Sportzwire. Good to see TFS guy, Chris, Rob. Couple things on wrestling note. First thing I want to talk about Ronda Rousey. Like, she has just been spitting nonstop negative comments, and people are saying she's starting to sound like the female Ryback with just how much negative stuff just comes out of her mouth with wrestling. I know she has her name is big, but she's taking her down a dangerous rabbit hole here if she keeps throwing the stuff that's damage in W. I know her second run wasn't great, but man, she's not happy. And the final thing, I know a lot of people have complained saying, oh, it should have been Stone Cold helping Cody. I have no problem with The Undertaker. I think it worked. I think the big thing people are forgetting, two things. The first thing is The Undertaker, The Miz said this in an interview. The Undertaker's the leader, the veteran. Him there helping Cody give the stamp of approval. The second thing is synonymous with WrestleMania. You have the streak. I think he's completed, 26 out of the 40 WrestleManias? So that right there kind of tells you how important him being there, his presence, you just hear that dong, was impressive. If you want to hear my other wrestling takes, you can follow me at Twitter at Randy Dillon, DillonDillon. Tom, looking forward to coming back to talk about hockey in a bit.
Absolutely. Got a lot to talk about in hockey. We just spent a good 20, 25 minutes on it. A lot going on. I mean, there's relocation talk. There's obviously playoff implications. A lot going on in hockey. Probably the most I've been excited to speak about hockey in a long time. So I look forward to seeing it in a little bit. So we'll remove you, take a break. And that was Mr. Randy Dillon. Will be back here in a little while. But we get to be joined by the rest of the gang. And we've got almost all of us together. So first of all, guys, how you doing? I mean, how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing great, man.
Now, Rob Maraska, you have a contest winner, or that's next week?
No, I have the contest winner of the Juan Soto card.
All right, so let's go for it here because let's go for it.
Okay, the winner of the Tops Now Juan Soto opening day card is Howard Hang of Bayside, New York. H on Twitter. So he's the winner, and on Twitter he is Double H, and that card's going to be going out in a couple of days, and he was real happy to win it. It's a good looking card.
Awesome. And also here, speaking of Ryback here, breaking news, Tony Khan suffered a heart attack at home and fell to the ground. CM Punk opened champagne as soon as he heard the news. April Fool's was 11 days ago, but thank you for that comment. But I will say we're actually changing gears now because we just spoke about wrestling. But thank you, though, for tuning in, and hopefully you'll be fed more comments here to share in the audience. But thank you for that. But I did want to start off, I guess, for you guys, and I'm sure all you guys heard it. Maybe I should go with this first, in that we have news, and it's kind of sad. It's sad, and I don't know how people are going to take this, but O.J. Simpson passed away at the age of 76, and he is certainly an interesting person in the world of sports, and we're joined by Justin Gianelli, who makes his long-awaited return. He did not pull a brute force Brad Weiss on us. He is actually here with us live, but that's a different conversation for a different time. But O.J. Simpson passes away at the age of 76, and how'd you guys feel about that? Certainly a rather controversial man in the world of sports, but I figured everybody heard about that, so I figured kind of start easy. I'll come back into baseball, but what did you guys think about that? The first 2,000-yard rusher in NFL history, but obviously a very, very dark cloud among him. But he does, have a huge legacy in the world of sports. But again, passes away at the age of 76, and certainly a lot of things that have went on in his life that kind of leaves it where it is. But what'd you guys think of all that?
Definitely crazy, man.
Who wants
Rest
to
in peace.
speak first on that one?
Yeah,
That's
really.
why I figured I'd open it up that way.
If we're talking about from a sports take on it, it's a loss. He's a 2,000-yard rusher.
First one.
Yep,
Yep, first one.
Yeah, the first one.
Great.
As an NFL player, he was incredible. But I can't speak for the things off the field. It's a touchy subject. I'm not even going to get there.
You know what?
I agree with that.
He was actually, when I was a kid, he was one of my favorite players. I got to watch him play. So.
Oh wow, you were the lucky one, I suppose. Well, not
And,
lucky. One.
and he was great. And then he did the Hertz commercials, and he was in the Towering Inferno and the Naked Gun stuff. And then what happened? We found out what the real OJ was like. Okay.
And I read that was the Bronco chase during the NBA Finals in 1994. That was the Bronco chase. They were actually cut away from the game, right?
Yes.
And they cut away, and they were having O.J. Simpson on a Bronco, and they were chasing him on.
That's right. You guys didn't see that, right?
Yeah, they did. Probably. We did though.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. It's 30 years ago, so I was watching it too.
I was watching. I was actually DJing a party, and they had it on in the back. So I was.
Oh wow.
DJing. But like I said, look what he turned out to be, and yeah, that Bronco. If he was innocent, what was he doing in that low speed?
He's
chase?
guilty.
Give me a break.
Guilty.
What a joke.
Listen, I have zero feelings about this.
Me
He's
too.
a piece of garbage.
Yep.
He got 30 years of bonus life outside of jail.
Well, I had to ask the question because I was going to ask you if guys want to have an opinion, but I'm going to ask Alan this question, and you can tell me how you feel about it because you're going to know what I'm going to say. Was O.J. Simpson kind of sports version of kind of a man we also look at in a very controversial way in the wrestling world? Chris Benoit.
Yep. I wouldn't say he's the same as Benoit.
Oh.
Benoit's case is really dark.
Morbid talk on Sportswire. That's what's driving the ratings. That's what's driving us right now.
I don't know. Chris Benoit's in-ring work was phenomenal, but you can't.
O.J. Simpson was one of the greatest running backs, and then he did something just like Chris Benoit did something to his family. That's the only reason why I brought the comparison up.
The only difference was Benoit got what he deserved a lot sooner than.
Yes.
Sure, I agree. And yes, there's no. I'm not just.
He was a bigger. That's another story, but you hate to even go into that because listen, if you want to kill yourself, go right ahead and do it. Don't kill, your wife and your kid. That is just.
Absolutely,
it's horrible. So I hate to even talk about it.
So there's nothing else anybody wants to add on the O.J. Simpson thing. It's basically he's 76, he's dead, he got bonus time. Okay, so let's go to another quote unquote fun story that I saw with
better stories.
This will be a better story. This will be a more funnier story in a way. Maybe not so much. We'll get to baseball. I know a lot to talk about baseball. I'm going to spend time. I'm going to get to everything, but. Is it really true that there's some rumors out there that Tom Brady would actually return again?
I saw that like literally like 20 minutes before the podcast. I was just scrolling on Instagram and I was like, man, can you just leave us alone? Like,
Right.
You know he has so
man.
much fun
Got
with
it.
it. He has
I don't-
fun with it, man.
he
Like,
has fun with torturing
Yeah, I
people
think
who played against
exactly.
him.
I'm with Scooby. I think he's just having fun. He's signed to a big contract with Fox to do the. Yeah, he's done. He's definitely done. And what's serious? All right, let's ask this question:
Let's go
what
for it.
team would be number one willing to sign him at 46 years old, and who's actually would give him that opportunity to win a Super Bowl right
Rangers.
if Rodgers goes down, go ahead and bring him in. Come on.
I knew you were going there. I knew it. I
would
knew
never
it
play
because
for the
we've
Jets.
already done it with Rodgers.
He couldn't do
We've done it
that.
with Favre
He
in the
couldn't
past.
do that.
Why not?
He
Why
would
not?
never.
I mean, he's from the Patriots, man. They
He
would
would never
disown
come. He
him.
would never
man.
play for the Jets ever.
Tennessee would be a
He
good
loved
one.
it too. He loved playing in New England for the longest until he went on his own route. But I mean, the way that him and Belichick talk about the Jets and some things that I've heard, it just doesn't sound like they have any appeal to want to be anywhere near
Now
the
we're
Jets.
assuming if it really was for him to come back, it would be is it a warm weather city?
Probably.
I
Has
mean,
anything to do
I
with it.
don't know.
I don't know.
I
You
don't
mentioned New
think
England.
he can do it.
He did mention New England.
But he ain't winning a Super Bowl going back to New England. What's the point of
No,
that?
he's not.
No,
True.
I don't think he can do it. I won't say that I won't think he can do it because he's the best that could ever do it. But I will just say that he's old, man. Like y'all are saying, I don't know who's gonna want to take that risk.
I mean,
number one.
sports. I mean, listen. I mean, I've spoke a lot about this on the air over the years, and Brady's gonna be what 46, right? He's 46 already, turning 47, or he just turned 46, and Father Time obviously catches up to everyone. I mean, sports history. I mean, how many athletes past 46 were, high caliber athletes? I mean, what? Maybe Chris Chelios in the NHL. Maybe had played to 48, right? Chris
And
Chelios.
also 46 years old, and he skipped a year too, right? He didn't play last year.
Jamie Moyer, right?
No.
Jamie Moyer hung around. Julio Franco, we had him with the Mets. It was a role player, but guys that were really playing at a high level. Yager, I would say Yager, maybe Chelios.
Satchel Paige.
You probably watched
There you go.
Satchel Paige. You probably sat there and remembered all his innings and probably could tell us the Satchel Paige memory report on, all platforms you can find us on. But the point is, I could count on my hand how many athletes at that level. So we really think it's just a way to keep himself in the tabloids.
Yeah, I think he's just having fun, man.
Yeah.
He was on a podcast. He was just,
Okay.
like you said,
Okay.
just having fun.
I mean,
Well,
you
it
would
was a
have
positive.
to have to change your whole team to kind of at least for 1 year, kind of like how Tampa did for a couple with really forming around Tom Brady to get exactly what he wants. And at this age, what's the pros and cons of it? It works out as good as it could possibly be and you win a Super Bowl for a year. Maybe, not likely, but then the cons is you look like a joke with Tom Brady. That's what it comes down to. And then Tom might leave and not say nice things.
Yeah, and I think in sports, right? I mean, there is a point you should want to retire and, becomes almost, be forced out of the game. Tom Brady, retired on his own 2 feet. Basically, he retired where he wasn't basically forced to kind of leave the league. Even though he wasn't as good, obviously, 2 years ago. But, he left kind of at the right time where it almost becomes as athletes, it's a decision that, you struggle with. When is it enough? I mean, LeBron James is continuing to go, and eventually we would think Father Time will catch up to him. Alexander Ovechkin, we'll talk about hockey in a little while, and he looked like he was staring Father Time in the eye, and he's got 30 goals this year, and he's got a legitimate shot, maybe even to break Gretzky's record next year. But the point is, in sports, as an athlete, you have to figure out when it's enough, and it seems like I would think with Brady that there's really nothing to gain from this. It's just a story that, for a podcast. Okay, so we'll obviously come back to that, but let's go into the world of baseball. We'll kind of start soft before we go into the Met and Yankees, because I know Rob Moras's got a lot of talk on the Mets, and the Mets are actually playing pretty well. Last week, Met fans were like, this team's going to win 50 games, and now they're like, playoffs. But that's baseball in New York. But what is going on with Shohei Ohtani? I mean, I hear 14 different things, and for everybody, what is going on? I still can't make out what's going on here with Shohei Ohtani. Let's start with that first, so everybody who wants to have an opinion can jump in.
I mean, listen, it seems like he's the victim here, right? I mean, but that's just so much money to not realize coming out of your account. But listen, if you're a compulsive gambler, where there's a will, there's a way, man. They'll do anything to make sure take that money and have it available. And then it was reported $180-something million in losses, and $140 million in winnings. I mean, it was just I don't know. Those numbers were mind-boggling, and apparently he would act on Shohei's behalf, and that's how he get access to the account. I don't know. It's still a really strange story.
I see you shaking your head, Rob Maraska. What do you got?
I just don't know. Something, like Justin said, something's off. I don't know. Are we hearing the full story? Is something being covered up? I mean, what's going on? Did he really not notice that much money disappearing from his account? Like you said, Tom, if you were missing like $100, you would know.
Listen, I even looked today at my savings account, and I noticed my interest dropped from 4.35% to 4.25%. Now, there's a large, I will say, admittedly, there's a large amount of money in the savings account, and I looked at that, and I was like, how did I drop 0.1%? So could you imagine if all of a sudden millions and millions of dollars were missing? You wouldn't know about it? Of course you'd know about it.
Of course, it doesn't make sense.
The whole thing's just bizarre. And, I mean, for you, Big T, you've been doing parlays. You're Mr. Parlay now. I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen to you. When you win millions of dollars in betting soon, right? Obviously, because you're doing the parlays now, you're following all this stuff. Hopefully, you don't get distracted by this competitive eating contest you have with Alan Michaels on May 24th, 10 p.m. Eastern time. You don't get distracted so much that you figure out all the money you had and you lost it. I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen to you that you've gotten in the world of parlaying, Mr. Big T.
Yeah, man, I definitely should have cashed out when I sent the picture, but I figured I'd let it ride.
Okay, well, I guess Shohei Ohtani is got some problems, and we'll see about them off the field. But as we pull up some links here in a minute, but let's go to you, Rob Maraska, and maybe we'll let Justin jump in because Justin's back with us. The New York Mets, funny, last week they struggled to win their first game. And now, all of a sudden, the New York Mets actually beat a red-hot Kansas City Royals team, which had a 5-game winning streak earlier this week. And a Kansas City Royals team, I believe, that had not trailed by more than one run going into the ninth inning the entire year. And the Mets got off to a slow start, but the Met bats are starting to heat up, and the Mets have actually won. And look out, 6 of their last 8 games, they actually go into Atlanta yesterday. And Big T probably was like, I'm going to put a parlay on the Braves. And the Braves always thump the Mets. And the Mets actually put a thumping on them. In fact, they scored more points in a game or more runs in a game than the Jets did most games last year. And the New York Mets are actually playing pretty decent ball right now, and they've won 6 of their last 8 games, and all seems to be well for the Mets.
They're starting to hit. And the key right now is Brett Beatty. He's fielding and he's hitting. He's starting to show, should I use that word, confidence at the plate.
Well, there was a guy that used to be on here that would talk about that, but he doesn't seem to have the confidence to tell us, hey, can I come back on the show? Because we actually might want to bring him back, but that's up to him. So that's, different conversation for a different time.
And what happened, in Atlanta, which has always been a house of horrors or a stadium of horrors for the Mets, they won 2 out of 3, and they came back in the first game. They took that game. Second game, also they almost won, and then the third game they just killed the Braves. So that really brought the confidence level up. That must have been a great plane ride home. And they're getting pitching. They're getting key hits now. So what a difference a week makes, Tom.
That's for sure. And, for you, Rob, you're confident the Mets are going to only continue with the bats here. Obviously, Martinez, other guys are on the way. And anything else you want to add before I get to Chris? And maybe I'll let Justin give a few minutes on the Mets, and then we'll go to Chris and get some other thoughts here before we work into some other sports.
Yeah, if they keep it up, if they keep the confidence, if they get the key hits, the pitching's been pretty good. And once Martinez gets here, things should change for the Mets. And, there's, that that last playoff spot there. So, the Mets are a decent team. So hopefully it's gonna be a fun season.
Absolutely. For you, Justin, Mets are off to a much better start this week. Last week, what a difference a week makes. You're here. You're back with us as we're looking at the TFS Takes Instagram page. You want to support these guys, and they've got their own podcast they're coming out with tomorrow, I believe. So we'll plug that as well in a little while. But Justin, you're back with us, and the Mets seem to be back, and all seems to be well right now for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of doing everything well right now. The starting pitching's been relatively good, although you kind of would like them to pitch a little bit deeper into the ball game. It feels like they're kind of just 5-and-fly guys, but it's kind of what you're expecting with some of the guys that they signed in the offseason. Bullpen's been pretty good for the most part. I mean, Jorge Lopez has been a little bit rocky, but overall the bullpen hasn't been too bad. And the lineup is, starting to come around. And the fact that, Brett Beatty is hitting the way he's hitting, I think is a huge, huge boost to this lineup. And because the confidence in him and, knowing that he's the guy at third base, it almost is like a weight off of his shoulders, and he's hitting the ball to all fields. I would like to see him drive the ball a little bit more, but he's done a good job getting on base. McNeil's starting to come around. Alvarez has been off to a decent start. There's a bunch of guys in this lineup that are performing well, and performing well to a point where it's reasonably sustainable. And that's not to mention Alonso has been okay. He hasn't been that great. Lindor has not been good at all. Marte's been okay. So I mean, it really bodes well for the long haul. But I'm still a little concerned about their pitching. But right now, on the pitching end, it's really so far so good.
Absolutely, and I want to say hello to our friends over at Versus the World Wrestling. We have a very big show coming up this Sunday, and we certainly had a lot to talk about with them because we had breaking news on Tuesday's show that Mr. Chase Wakefield effectively announced his retirement on Sportzwire Radio. So we want to thank the Versus the World Wrestling for tuning in, and we know that we're not retiring here on Sportzwire Radio anytime soon here. But Chris, Yankees have been off to a strong start. It's been a little bit more of an up and down week this week. I was listening to Bobby Tats. I know you were on their podcast as well, and they were talking, Donald and Rob were talking about Aaron Judge and his slow start. But, by and large, very strong start for the Yankees here this first week. A couple of mild surprises. We'll talk about that here in the league in a few minutes before we go into some other things. But overall impressions so far, I think you still got to be happy where the Yankees are, considering, Judge's slow start and still no Cole, kind of a big mystery where that goes from here. But what's your overall impressions on that? As the Yankees obviously, did not play today, but they'll be back out in the field tomorrow for sure in Cleveland.
Yeah, it rained out today. I think they play doubleheader tomorrow.
12-10 first pitch, I think, is right.
Yeah, I think, listen, great start. I mean, 10-3. You can't do much better than that. I mean, they had a really, they had couple of really tough series as well. Houston, you had Arizona, you had Toronto.
Houston's off to a slow start, by the way.
Which that's a little bit of a surprise, but they also have a lot of injuries. But so far, the Yankees 10-3 with Judge doing nothing, Torres doing nothing, Rizzo doing nothing for them. So, and like you said, no Garrett Cole, no DJ LeMahieu. So I think, with the circumstances, you can't really ask for much more than a
Soto's been good so far. You like what you see from Soto? He's getting on base.
Yeah.
Hope he's had some big hits for you. I mean, so there's some, a lot of good things from the plate you'd like to see.
Yeah, listen, Soto's going to get on like crazy, right? He's an on-base machine. He'll walk all day. He gets the hits. And I think it's just going to get much better once Judge starts hitting. He's hitting, 175, I think, or 185. Yep. So once he gets going and once he gets hot, then, I think this offense is just going to be great. And then you add Torres, and when Rizzo gets going, Stanton has been a little bit of a surprise here early on.
He's got home runs early in the year.
How long is that going to take? What'd you say?
He's got 4 home runs early in the year, Stanton.
Yeah. I mean, how long is that going to hold on? I don't know, but we'll see. It'd be great to see him, finish up his last, 4 years here. Kind of on a hot streak and maybe get to 500 home runs.
I was going to say that 500. Yeah, that'd be a real interesting stat if he could get there. Yep.
If he hits 500, you're probably looking at a Hall of Famer. I don't think he'll get in if he doesn't hit 500, but
No.
it's hard not to put him in if he hits 500 home runs. So, but yeah.
I don't even know if he's a first balloter anyway with 500, considering his career. I mean, he'll probably get in, but I don't know if he's a first ballot. The way the Baseball Hall of Fame committee has been, they don't always reward people there. I think that'll be interesting. He's an interesting conversation starter for sure. You and Patrick were actually talking about who could hit 700 plus home runs that's left on active players, and there's really nobody. And you could say you guys were talking about Mike Trout, but he'd have to really hit like 30 plus home runs for the next like 8 years, and he's injury plagued. So there's really nobody. There's really nobody out there that you could say, that person could go out and really put some numbers up to say you're in the top 5, 6, or 7 in the all-time home run category. That's an interesting.
My guesses were either. Well, we both said either somebody who's not playing in the league yet, or a guy who's been playing for maybe a year or two, right? Because you lost more than a half a season because of the COVID season 4 years ago. So if anybody was playing then, you lost half a season. So
maybe Soto, right? Maybe you could throw Soto in the mix.
Nah, he's not a big home run guy. You know what
still
I mean?
Young, though.
Maybe
He's
a
still young.
consistent guy. I don't know.
Maybe Machado, maybe?
Yeah. No.
500 home runs? No.
500? Yeah, definitely. I was thinking
Bryce Harper?
Yeah, maybe 500. He'd have to stay healthy.
Those would be the guys that come to my mind. Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I was just thinking more for the younger guys that have come out the last couple of years, like even like a Julio Rodriguez. If he
I heard you guys talk about him.
30 to 40 home run guy his whole career. I mean, but is he going to do that? I don't know.
All right, we'll have to see. And for you, Justin, any thoughts on the Yankees? Other things, talking about home runs and not really too many guys on the horizon, and we'll certainly get into a couple of other things here in a few minutes with the rest of the guys. But any thoughts you have on that, Justin?
I mean, look. Despite the slow start by Aaron Judge, the Yankees have been off to a relatively hot start. They're, I think, 10-3, and they're kind of what we expected. And Juan Soto's brought a new energy. It feels like their energy is a little bit different this year, and I think that's something that was really needed after a lot of the discord over the last couple of years, and just everything just got kind of stale. Still not a big fan of their pitching staff. Obviously right now minus Garrett Cole. There's a lot of other guys that need to step up, but they're in a good spot, and I'm sure they'll be fine this weekend against Cleveland. I think they say? They said the doubleheader tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, 12-10 first pitch tomorrow.
Got it. So. I would think they take 2 out of 3 from Cleveland. So
Cleveland's played well also. They're off to a good start.
Yeah, Cleveland's played well. And they got themselves a rookie manager this year, Stephen Vogt.
We know him well, ex-player, certainly.
Yeah,
respected player.
Replacing Francona. But we'll see. It should be a good series because Cleveland's obviously one of the teams that are firmly in the mix for the Central. It will probably come down to between them and Minnesota. I can't buy too much into the Royals' hot start.
Detroit's played well. You don't buy into Detroit. A lot of people are high on Detroit. I mean, somebody has to win.
I think Detroit's much improved, but I don't think that they're quite ready to be on that playoff level.
Okay. All right. I mean, Cleveland Bieber obviously injured there, but again, they've been there before. Offense is a question. National League. Milwaukee's off to a very strong start. Maybe a mild surprise. Pittsburgh's off to a good start again. But I think other than that, the Marlins are 2-12. I think that's obviously, they're probably on the road to selling whatever they've got. So I think the Marlins might be the biggest surprise in terms of that. For you, Rob, anything else on the baseball end before I change into the rest of the guys for a few minutes, let them speak on some different things. Anything else for you, Rob, that you like to share on baseball?
No, like you said, just the Marlins only winning 2 games so far. It's like we didn't think they were going to be this bad. What are they already, like 7 games out or something? It's ridiculous. So they're going to probably be sellers, and that franchise is just
another franchise that you just wonder. it doesn't seem to work, baseball in Florida. Tampa has obviously had their issues. They've won a lot. The Marlins, playoff team last year, but ownership never really decides to spend money. They did get the new ballpark. I mean, obviously we're going to talk in about 15 minutes on the NHL, and we have a team that's relocating there. But in baseball, it just never seems to work in Florida. It just doesn't. Tampa and Miami and whether it was Florida, and they've had success, those franchises, and they just don't seem to draw fans. I mean, there's probably more people that watch TBW shows than go to Marlins games, right, Alan Michaels? Probably. I mean, if you actually think about it, I mean, I know you don't work in TBW anymore, but the facts are is that probably more people watch Tennessee Backyard Wrestling than they go to Miami. No, it's really true. There are more people that actually watch Tennessee Backyard Wrestling than the Miami Marlins. That's kind of a sad point, right? The Miami Marlins don't even draw that many fans. It is very sad that the Miami Marlins it's really sad. Everybody talks about Oakland, but obviously, you've got the issues there with the Marlins for attendance. And there was a time, once upon a time, that Oakland was at least drawing. I wouldn't say they drew 40,000 a night like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Boston, but they were drawing reasonably well.
They should merge the Marlins and the Rays together,
right,
and let them move to the Miami. They could all play there. They have a nice stadium. It's just, what is it, 5 years old, 10 years old? Let them play there. Knock down Tampa Stadium because that's a dump. And there you go. Problem solved.
But I guess the question would be, would baseball want to do that? The union's not going to want to lose jobs.
No,
union, understandably so. The union's going to look at it like, well, I'm losing jobs, But, it's a big issue. But, for you guys in the TSF Takes side, what are some other things that you'd like to talk about in the world of sports before we go into some hockey? I know most of the guys are hockey guys here, but in terms, we'll bring Randy back on in about 10 minutes. But for the rest of you guys, what are some of the other things that have been on your mind? NBA, I know, is out there. We're getting close to the playoffs. Knicks obviously had some news, but across the league, a number of different things. But just for you guys in general, as sports guys, what are some of the things you're looking to talk about?
The first round, I would say real quick, I actually had something to bring up about baseball.
Go for it. You're Big T. I mean, you're the guy supposed to win this eating contest over Alan Michaels, so I'm not going to argue with you.
Man, I seen a thread that I remember we were talking. I think about the A's that was on the last show that we were talking
about the stadium there. Yep, correct.
We were kind of trying to figure out how, or the reason. I guess they had some rookie player last year that had a bunch of stolen bases and was playing real well, and I guess they demoted him or sent him down.
And they sent him down. Yep.
And then I guess one of their star players, who was probably their best hitter last year, I want to say he had like the better average over everybody by like a long shot. These guys are like basically getting punished, and he's not really playing much this year. And I went to figure out why. But I seen a thread that these guys are wearing the merchandise that was like basically bashing their owner. They had like these little yellow wristbands on, and the merchandise that came out was
John Fisher.
And I guess after they were seen wearing this stuff and things like that is the reason that I guess their best hitter is not playing as much as he should be this season. And the reason the guy got sent down is just because I guess they're basically hating on their own team. I thought that was pretty crazy, man. I mean, I get it. You don't like the team, but this is also the same team that has you employed and a great job in the MLB, a job that nobody would ever want to obviously ever have taken away from them. But I just thought that whole situation was actually insane, man. That was crazy. That was definitely crazy.
Very crazy, very crazy. I'll bring Justin in for a second, and I'm going to get to TBK. He has a good point in the Baltimore Orioles, Jackson Holiday. That was also in our thread. But, for you, Justin, what do you make of the whole situation out there in Oakland? Obviously, we were speaking about it last week. Looks like they're going to play in Sacramento for 3 years. We still don't have a stadium that's being built in Las Vegas. They have to get it passed, I believe, through the state legislature, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of politics involved with that in terms of different things that have come out. But what do you make of the whole situation in Oakland? Just a really sad state of affairs. In about 10 minutes, we're going to talk about another sad situation going out there in Arizona. But what's your thoughts on some of that now that you're back with us?
Yeah, it's extremely sad. I mean, listen, they've been in Oakland for a number of years now. I mean, obviously, it is a franchise that's moved 2 times before between Philadelphia and then Kansas City. But, they've really been a staple of, Northern California baseball for quite a while now. And, the history that they have, the 70s with all that winning, winning in 89, getting to the World Series in 88 and 90. I mean,
Even the last 20 years, they were in the playoffs a lot.
They've relatively, except for the last couple of years, they've been relatively a consistent franchise and make the playoffs on a near regular basis. You know what John Fisher has done to this franchise is just an absolute abomination. I mean, you know, now that they're going to Sacramento, right? They're going to play in the minor league stadium, the AAA stadium. I mean, that's not an ideal situation, right? They don't have an official home in Las Vegas, even though they basically agreed to move there. The stadium hasn't been built yet. I don't even think the stadium's been approved yet.
Nope.
So, I mean, they're kind of doing all this without, you know, knowing where their next games are going to be played. But I mean, it's really sad for the city of Oakland because the city of Oakland clearly can't hold franchises.
We talked about it last week. We lost 3 major sports teams in Oakland in the last decade. The Warriors,
at least the Warriors, they went across the bridge to San Francisco, but the Raiders moved to Las Vegas. The A's are going to be in Las Vegas. It's a bad scene right now, and nobody goes to the games. You know, they're holding a player down in the minor leagues who was hitting like
429. Yep.
Yeah, he was hitting 429 the first week of the season, but they're doing it to manipulate his service time. You know, and Brent Rooker goes on the IL today, which was a perfect opportunity to call another infielder up. So they could have brought Ruiz back up, yet they brought somebody up who's batting like 150 in AAA.
But he's already, played a full season, though,
for the A's, all around.
But didn't he already play a full season last year, Ruiz? I don't understand. Why would it have anything to do with that?
It's still eligibility. They want an extra year of control.
I don't know. To me, it makes no sense from that because he's already been up. Like he's already played a full season.
Yeah, he exceeded his rookie limits during the 2023 season.
When you look at his stats, the offensive stat, but he's a horrible defensive outfielder. Horrible.
Yeah.
So maybe he's just that bad that he doesn't,
Well, I think regardless, the situation in Oakland is unfortunately going to come to an end, and it's going to come to an end out to the detriment of the fan base. And we'll see what happens in Sacramento. They're playing in a minor league stadium. Again, we're going to talk about a situation. It'll probably be very similar to this in about less than 10 minutes. But let me read off TBK's comments from some of the guys. Thoughts on Jackson Holiday, fellas? Did he get called up too soon? Looks a little green at the plate, in my opinion. Obviously, Chris commented on YouTube, but anybody else wants to add anything on Jackson Holiday? We're going to obviously change lanes to quote Sad Boy, or the guy that used to look like Sad Boy. You're back to Alan Michaels again, but
I think it's just a matter of time with Jackson Holiday. I mean, this kid's going to be a star in this league. So if they have the patience, I think he's going to be fine. The only thing is, I mean, this is a team that's, going to compete for the division, possibly the playoffs, Super Bowl.
I think it's more than just getting into the playoffs this year with Baltimore. It's about like getting into the playoffs and going deep. This is a team that's absolutely for a big run.
So are they going to have the patience to ride it out maybe for 2 or 3 weeks until he starts to kind of relax and hit? But I think he's going to be fine. I mean, he's like a natural. You know what I mean? He's 20 years old. He's going to be fine. You just got to have the patience, and they have so much talent, young talent on that team, and they got more coming. So they're going to be an interesting team coming up for the trade deadline, in June and July. Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to trade some of their veterans for a pitcher? Maybe, they're going to be an interesting team to watch for sure.
I think maybe they should have kept them down just a little while longer. Because like you said, Chris, I don't know what if he doesn't hit for a couple of weeks? Is that going to do anything to his confidence? And are they going to be able to deal with that? Because they want to go deep into the playoffs, and they should. So maybe they should have waited a while. I don't know, but he's going to be great.
All right, let me get into. I want to get to the NBA. I got a couple guys here that could give me some thoughts on that. Randy Dillon's going to come in here in about 5 or 6 minutes from now, and we'll wind up talking about the NHL, lots of stuff. But, for NBA, I mean, for you guys that are following the NBA, I mean, we got a real interesting situation in the Western Conference, the East. The Knicks have gotten on a run. And for the NBA guys, what are some of the stories that you're looking for here going into the play-in round next week?
I think the play-in with the think it's Kings and Warriors, and then
Yep, you got
who
the
Lakers
right
are
now,
playing.
it's the
But
Suns,
that
Lakers, Kings, and Warriors that are in those spots. Obviously, it could change. New Orleans got a huge window yesterday over Sacramento, but New Orleans is in that 6th spot. But that's pretty much where it is at this point. I think Dallas has clinched the 5th spot, if I'm not mistaken. So it's really a matter of can New Orleans keep their spot to avoid the play-in? And right now it's Phoenix, the Lakers, the Kings, and the Warriors. Those are our play-in teams in the West. And in the East, our play-in teams right now to Donnybrook. You got the Magic, the 76ers, the Pacers, and the Heat, the Bulls, and the Hawks. The Hawks are always, the Hawks are always in the play-in rounds. Just look at every year, the Hawks in the play-in round, or at least 8th in the Eastern Conference. But you've obviously got some seeding that can change. Cleveland, is pretty much more than likely going to avoid the play-in round, but they're 2 up on Orlando, Philadelphia, Indiana. Orlando and Indiana, definitely mild surprises this year. More so Orlando of a big surprise. But anything on that end you see changing for both the NBA guys?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think what we see as the top 6 is probably going to be the top 6. I mean, I have a feeling we're going to see Philadelphia and Miami in that play-in round. I think that game's going to be bonkers.
Well, Philadelphia, Orlando, and Indiana are tied, so they're all tied.
And right now Orlando, based off of this from ESPN, Orlando has the 5 seed, Indiana has the 6 seed.
Correct.
Philly is 7. Philly is 7, Miami 8. But what's incredible is you have the Hawks in the 10 seed at 36-45, yet over in the Western Conference,
Houston had 39 wins, and that was.
And they're nowhere to be found, and because the Warriors are 45-35, and so is Sacramento, and the Lakers, by beating a very undermanned Grizzly team, they were missing 13 players tonight. The Lakers are 46-35. So I mean, I think we're looking at Lakers Suns, which would be LeBron versus Durant in the play-in, which would be absolute cinema. But then you look at some of the teams at the top of the conference that are going to have to watch out for these play-in teams.
A team like Minnesota, right, that doesn't have much playoff success.
Yeah, or Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's on their way to potentially winning the Western Conference 1 seed, and they're going to be matched up against the 8 seed. And that could very well be the Suns or the Lakers, and that would be. I mean, you talk about being an underdog as a 1 seed. That might actually happen.
Scooby, I saw you shaking your head, Scooby. What did you want to jump in, Scooby?
I mean, I agree with him there. Any of those teams that make it out of that dogfight of the play-in just have so much playoff experience, have been around the league for so long. So that's the one thing with the Thunder. I think everybody knows how good of a team they are. They know how talented they are, especially between the big 3 they have over there that are young and stud-like. But, I mean, when you look at it just like, when you go and see the commercials that they're going to pop up all week of like whoever it may be, like Durant versus Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous, I mean, you can't help but think like, all right, they might be in over their heads here.
I mean, see, Phoenix made the finals a few years ago. Lakers won the championship in the COVID year. They went to the conference finals, I believe, last year. And, those teams, who would want to face them? And, oh, by the way, the Warriors. I mean, look at their playoff pedigree. And, you have teams, again, Denver's the defending champions. They're right there as well. They could still obviously have the number 1 seed if, luck certainly goes into their favor. But, again, teams like Minnesota, teams like OKC that don't have the playoff experience, that people aren't going to look at the seeding, and it's not going to matter because, again, if you're Phoenix, Los Angeles, or you're obviously a Golden State, Sacramento has obviously come down to earth a little bit, and they're probably going to be the team that most people wouldn't think come out of the play-in. But again, if especially you're the top 2 teams currently, I mean, you might be underdogs. That's crazy as that sounds, right? You in the West, you're underdogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just talking to the guys before we got in here earlier about this series that we do have locked in, Clippers versus Mavericks, man.
Oh my God, yep.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be
great.
And like, it's hard not to say that the Clippers just got a better roster when you see it next to each other. They look like
individually. Dallas has got 2 players that could win a series.
That's what I was telling the boys. Like, you just can't. Like, in my mind, I really can't see Luka and Kyrie going out in the first round. They might go out in the second, third, but, like, I just don't see them going out in the
And
first
they don't have
round.
motivation after collapsing last year. If you think about it
Yeah.
this way. I see some of you guys shaking heads in the TSF Takes group. You want to say something for you guys? You want to say something, Big T, before I bring in Randy Dillon?
Yeah, that's fine. So it was actually me and Scoob that was talking about this, and I was kind of looking at it the
Did
opposite
you
way.
get a
Don't get me
parlay
wrong.
on it?
No, I didn't. I was looking at the opposite way, man. I'm a very big fan of what the Clippers have going right now. Obviously, I just like Kawhi. I like P. I like everybody that they got over there, including Russ. I think it's a very weird matchup. Obviously, Kawhi and PG being the forwards there that are like the dominant guys over there, with James Harden kind of just playing his role, but can have those hot nights. Whereas Luka and Kyrie, man, just from the guard position in their own, they're going to be hot. They're going to get hot no matter what. So as long as the Clippers guys are out there and they're going back and forth the whole time, I think the Clippers will probably take it in about 6 games. That's just me. Obviously, I don't want to say that against Luka and Kyrie, but like I said, I think they just pulled a tough straw, man. Having to play the Clippers round 1, especially fully healthy, is no walk in the park, especially if Kawhi is on one of those runs, man.
And we know he's done it before. He's won multiple
Definitely,
championships, and there's some really interesting storylines. This is kind of when I get into basketball. I got to be honest. I kind of sleepwalk through the NBA season, but around now, I'm like, okay, all right, I can put the light on. I can get into
The series
it.
are fun. The
Yeah,
NBA
the series are
finals,
fun.
the series are great.
Yeah, listen, the series, I like to play in. I mean, it's hard for me to sit there and watch like an NBA regular season game when I have to watch like 18 backyard wrestling matches. So it's like, what's my odds? Like, probably watch an Allen Michaels match or watch, the Clippers play, Toronto. I'm going to obviously go with, watch an Allen Michaels match because Allen Michaels is obviously with us right now. But, and then the East, obviously, Knicks are playing really well right now. Knicks are obviously locked in. Knicks are going to be very interesting to watch. Locally before we get to hockey, we talked about Cleveland, Orlando, possibly an intriguing matchup. Can Donovan Mitchell have some success in the playoffs? We also have here again what happened with Miami in the play-in. I think is an interesting situation. So some interesting storylines. We'll see what happens there. But I want to bring back our buddy Randy Dillon because I got a lot to talk about with hockey, Randy. So we got some guys here that'll probably have some thoughts on. Almost most of the guys here will have a thought on that. But Randy, let us start off with unfortunately some more disappointing relocation news, but kind of something that we spoke about. And one of the first official conversations that we had here live was the Arizona Coyotes, because the Arizona Coyotes, now we speculated once upon a time they could be going to Houston, but they're not actually going to Houston. It looks like they're going to somewhere a lot colder in Salt Lake City, and it looks like, say it isn't so, but Randy Dillon, I was wondering what you think, and kind of to open things up here for a little bit on hockey. Are we looking at another team saying sayonara, but maybe with a catch?
Absolutely, Tom. I actually remember that because we used to have to call in on
And I called
Sportzwire,
you. Yep, we spoke about it. It was a Saturday night.
Yep,
you called
Saturday
in
night.
a little
I remember
after
calling
11
in.
o'clock, and we spoke about 2.5 years ago, and I was listening to Elliot Friedman. He was on a NHL radio 2 days ago, and they were talking about going back to over 10 years ago at the Arizona Coyotes had stadium problems, almost kind of like what we're dealing with Oakland right now. And what do you make of this? But it seems to me like it's not a permanent goodbye, though, in this case to Arizona. What do you say on all this?
It's just a accumulation of everything that's gone wrong with Arizona, with the ownership, the fact that their arena is in a bad location, the fact that they're playing in a college university stadium the last 2 years. This ownership, I think the Coyotes are just dead tired, and I feel they think this is the NHL, Gary Bettman, they feel this is the only way they can get rid of this ownership. Put them in Salt Lake City, Utah for a few years, and then hopefully bring them back to Arizona with a new ownership group in an arena there. But
the Salt Lake City situation is permanent. They're not. So if they're going to Salt Lake City, but from what I heard, now obviously some hockey guys are going to have different thoughts on this. Maybe they're going to tell me something that I already said. But my understanding is that Arizona would come back as an expansion team.
I don't know how they can. Who's going to invest that much?
But they're talking about expansion in the NHL. They were talking about Arizona, potentially if this Salt Lake City thing goes through. I heard Houston, Atlanta.
But Tom, the money, how much did Seattle pay? Justin, you might know this better, or Chris, or Scooby, or DK. Like, how much did Seattle pay to get an expansion? Like, it was quite a. Like,
I think it was over $1 billion. It was over $1 billion.
So I don't know if Arizona, they want to fork out that money. I think Scottsdale said, no, we don't want a hockey team there. So it's like, where are you going to put them?
Don't. I mean, they clearly don't. I mean, listen, their attendance had suffered for a number of years, and this even predates the miraculous conference finals run that they made in 2012 when they lost to LA. I mean, listen, Hockey just isn't going to be a draw there. And, they got the team to Seattle a couple of years ago. It looks like the Coyotes are going to move to Salt Lake. But if they're looking at expansion to 34, which I think is what's going to happen.
They want 2 teams is what I've been hearing throughout the entire week. I listened to hours upon hours of this. It seems like
I
they
would
want
say,
to go to.
I would say the most likely cities, Houston's got to be one. I mean, Houston does well with attendance in sports. I mean,
It's also an emerging city. It's a growing metropolis, and
and hockey's the only sport where there's only one Texas team.
Yep, Dallas.
Because you have all 4 sports of the Dallas Metroplex, but you have only the 3 in Houston, and Houston could go for a second hockey team. I really do believe that. Texas could go for a second hockey team. The other one,
they say Atlanta. They say Atlanta's got a great.
Are we gonna do this again though? I mean, they lost. They lost the Flames back in the 80s.
But you might look at it. Atlanta's a different.
They lose the Thrashers. I don't know about that.
But I think Atlanta's a different city then. I think Atlanta's a different city because kind of like Houston, they've become growing areas from migration from places like here and elsewhere. So if they're going to go, or again, Arizona, there's a clause apparently that the owner of Arizona gets 5 years to put together an offer. And there's a parcel of land out there that would give him a chance if he wins the bid to build a new arena, and he gets a rite of passage maybe to get an expansion. That's kind of where we're at that. I mean, so the Arizona situation's, what it is. But can hockey work in Salt Lake City for the hockey guys here? Can Salt Lake City
be interesting?
I don't think so.
It'd work better there than Arizona.
I think they're going to follow the same issue Arizona has, because Arizona never have had a star caliber player. They've had Shane Doan, Caden Keller's not bad, Ekman Larson had some good years, but they never have had like a Doughty, a Stamkos, a Jake Robertson. I'm losing Connor Bedard. You've had Anaheim. You've had the Trevor Zegras. They
didn't have Solani at the very beginning when they moved to Phoenix.
He was with Winnipeg.
No, he moved on by then.
Yeah,
he moved on by them.
They never had a star. And I don't think if Salt Lake City can't get a star, I think they might have the same problem with Arizona, because if you don't have a star you can market around or someone that can attract attendance, Chicago sucks right now, but how much of their attendance has to do with Connor Bedard?
A lot of it.
But Chicago's also won Stanley Cups recently. I'm sure there's a lot more of a patience there.
I'll give you Anaheim. Anaheim's been awful for so long. It's Zegras. It's guys like their other players. I can't remember the one they just drafted. Their players are getting in there that are getting their attention.
And Chicago's one of the original 6, so they're going to be
Chicago.
They're always going to be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. What about Randy? What about an expansion team in Canada?
I think they all go depend on the Canadian dollar, because right now it's 134 here. The $1 is $1.34 Canadian. So it's going to be American dollar. So they're paying a hefty fine here. If the dollar especially struggling here still. I don't know, because that's why I think
City is not a market still that they.
It's a market, but it's the dollars because the revenue aspect. Because I think when Winnipeg was relocated here from Atlanta, the Canadian dollar is actually stronger than the American dollar by a little bit back in 2011.
Okay, that's a good point.
Right now, the Canadian dollar is not that strong as the American. So how much extra money, how much money you think Quebec going to bring in? Winnipeg's right now struggling as well, so it's a gamble.
But also, does Montreal have the right of passage, kind of like in baseball, where Baltimore is blocked or tried to block the Nationals? Does the Montreal have the right of passage to block Quebec City?
They might.
Maybe, but I don't know, because it might cause an attendance risk. Because listen, you have a whole province going to, or a state going to want to see a hockey team. It makes a huge difference where you have 2 places to spread it out.
And I also, before we come into a few things in hockey, want to say thank you to everybody tuning in. We have 134 people out there, and most of them are on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter right now, go support the TSF Takes. All platforms, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, hit them up. TikTok, we have a clip of 30,000 views of us on their TikTok page. Check us out on YouTube at Sportzwire Radio 6570 on our YouTube channel, especially. Armor Roscoe on Twitter, Randy Dillon on Twitter and Instagram, CP7NY, also Liftoff Jets Talking Rivals. Support them on their platforms. If you like what you hear from us right now, Go and follow them. Spotify, here, sportswireradio.org, or internet radio station. Also, JGNLE12. Hit him up on Twitter and follow all these guys out here. Alan Michaels, follow him on Instagram as well. DK is on Instagram. Follow these guys, tier_tier10L, Big T. Make sure you support us. You like what you're hearing from us right now. Go and hit those buttons to follow us on all those other platforms. Okay, so relocations are going to be a topic I'm sure we'll talk about for quite a while on the platform, unfortunately, but a lot to talk about here in the NHL. And Scooby, we were talking about the Rangers and Islanders last week, and the Islanders got a big win. And right now, all of a sudden, feeling good I'm even feeling so good right now. I might even want to show up to UBS Arena for the first time because the Islanders have won 6 games in a row, and it seems like the New York Islanders are on the verge of locking up a playoff spot, and it's really been an interesting topsy-turvy last week in the league. And the Pittsburgh Penguins have gone 10 straight games without a loss in regular season, and I can't figure out these other teams, the Flyers, the Red Wings, the Capitals, Randy. I got you on. We'll get that for a second, but Islanders get a big win, and Scooby, your Rangers are struggling to hold on to your own spot in the Metropolitan Division.
I know, man. Hopefully we can stay at that number 1, man. I hope so. We want that trophy at the end. But it really just comes down to what goes down in the playoffs. I could really care less how the regular season goes as long as we get the cup at the end. But I think Randy said it best the other day, man. It's really going to come down to who wins these games, Who wins these games, and that's right now it's looking like the Islanders. The Islanders won versus the Preds. They took 1 versus the Rangers, like we were talking about the need to take.
The Islanders won some games. I got to be honest.
It looked like they're supposed to be there. So
I think it comes down to goaltending. Chris, the Islanders actually have a pretty good 1-2 duo, even though it's a team that's really been offensively challenged all year. But right now, Varley's hot. Sorokin's had his moments at times, but the Islanders have the goaltending depth, and let's hope Noah Dobson's okay. But they've got some also depth defensively, and the Islanders have kind of rode out some of the early storms. It's been a weird season if you think about it, right? We had a 6-game winning streak earlier in the year when Patrick Waugh took the job, a 6-game losing streak right afterwards, and now we've won 6 in a row. So the Islanders are seems like they're about to maybe return to the playoffs, when it was thought after the Red Wings played them about 3.5 weeks ago that it was going to be on the golf course.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I mean, we were just talking the other day. I think Chris was saying he didn't even really want to see him in the playoffs if they're just going to go lose in the first round. You know what I mean? But I mean,
it might be a tough out now, because you got the goaltending, offense has played better. Palmieri's got almost 30 goals. He had a slow start to the year. Yeah. Offensively, they're challenged. Sure. I mean, Barzell is their leading scorer with 80 points. It's, I'll let Randy's thought in a second, but Dobson's got 70 points. Horvat's heated up in the second half. Brock Nelson's got 30 goals. Anders Lee has gotten to 20. So now the Islanders are starting to pick up, and maybe you look at it and say, it's a team that's only lost 27 games in the regular season. Maybe they didn't get
the one thing that scared me in the Ranger game, right? They came out, they were up 3-0 right away.
They struggled again. Yep.
And what killed me though was that third period. Yep. They played not to lose, right? They were playing so defensive.
Yesterday they played the same way for a lot of that game against Montreal.
Yeah, exactly. And that killed. I was like, you're not going to win anything by playing that way. They came out great against the Rangers. Boom, 3 goals right away. I was like, this is amazing, right? But I'm in the back of my head, I'm thinking, all right, it's going to be still a 5-4 game. Someone's going to, right. It. You know what?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely know it. What we saw at the game in
they had a lot of shots. I think that first period versus the Rangers, when they have how many shots they have?
Great.
It went great for them, and then it just,
third period.
Yeah, man, we got to talk about those cheap shots, though, man. We're going to talk about those cheap shots, man. I'm not like that. I'm not like the shoulder. Come on, man. We know that was not. Yeah, it was.
You can't talk about cheap shots when you got Jacob Trouba on your roster.
Yeah,
you got to sell that.
He's not called a flying elbow.
There was a poll that came out, and I think Trouba was one of the top 4 or 5 dirtiest players. It was a players' poll voted on, and Trouba was up on the list. Thank you for saying that, DK, by the way. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate that.
There's no way that was just two guys.
I'm just messing with y'all, man. I'm just messing with
we're playing tomorrow afternoon. It's still a big game for both teams. I mean, the Islanders, despite the winning streak, they still got to win at least. I'd probably say, to be safe, 2 of the next 3. You still got.
Yep.
You can't lose them.
Yep.
You can't lose out. You still listen. New Jersey's going to be game, and then you got Pittsburgh the end of the season.
Yep.
What do you think?
They're not
you guys
too
need a
difficult
line
games, but they're
ball
definitely
tomorrow
not
afternoon.
cakewalk.
What was that, Justin? What was that?
The Islanders and Rangers need a full-on line
Oh,
ball.
yeah.
Oh, there's going to
Go
be some
for it.
fights tomorrow.
Dude,
Well, you know
it's
what's
been
funny? The
getting
Rangers.
scrappy. It's been
Look at-
getting
Oh, it's
scrappy
going to get
recently.
very
Think of it this
scrappy
way,
tomorrow.
weren't we
Yeah.
talking a couple weeks ago? Rangers, Devils, and all that fighting we saw
Well,
early.
yeah. Then you had Curtis McDermott and Matt Rempe go square off, and then it turned out to be a tire line ball because Chris Tierney was out there, Kevin Ball was out there. I mean, they sent out Curtis Lazar went out there. I mean, you're not starting the game with that fourth line.
You want to
I
say
mean,
something,
at this
Randy?
point, we
No, I
can
was
do
just
it.
gonna say TNT could have done a better job with the view on that line, bro. Like you only see like one or two fights to say you see them all at once. I would just say that much. If there is, give them all the fights, not just one fight.
And I see your Canucks jersey, and the Edmonton Oilers, Randy, had an opportunity to get 2 points tonight. And speaking of those Coyotes, they've been playing really good of late. They've been playing spoiler, and they've been winning some games. So off the ice, they've got a lot of problems, but on the ice, they've played spoiler really well. And the Oilers had an opportunity to get some points. McDavid is out, and obviously we'll see Edmonton in Vancouver now, I guess today in New York time. But what do you do with McDavid? By the way, obviously McDavid.
You rest him. If I'm Edmonton, I just rest him until he's 100% going because
Keep
the
him hot.
expectation is still for them to win a Stanley Cup. And
They
you
haven't
have
won a
a-
division since 1987, though. That doesn't matter to you?
I don't think it matters the division
Not as
title.
much.
You look at some of these teams. Look at Vegas. Look at LA. Even Chicago. Even Pittsburgh when they won their back-to-back cups.
Yeah.
They were never
Rangers
division.
got to the cup and were a wild card, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I don't think division. It's just more of a consolation prize. It's like a consolation prize. They had a great regular season, but a lot of the good teams don't.
I wanted to ask the hockey guys this, and I know we're going to work in other guys in a minute, about 5 or 10 minutes. And TBK had a funny line. He also wanted to say, though, Randy, I want you on brand at all times. You wear a championship belt on your shoulder during wrestling talk. For hockey talk, you should have a jersey, puck, goalie mask, and a bottle of maple syrup. If you want waffles out there, I could probably use a good bottle of maple syrup. But I promise we'll get to the rest of the guys here in about 10 or so minutes. But I was wondering for the rest of you guys, these other teams in the East, we talk about Detroit, Washington. I know, sorry for you, Randy, on Washington and Philadelphia. These teams had opportunities weeks ago to cash in and be in the playoffs. And they gave teams like the Islanders in Pittsburgh, especially the Islanders, who really have had such a really bizarre season, to kind of almost give themselves to control their own destiny. And for the hockey guys, what do you make of the situation there? John Tortorella, you heard different things. He said a couple different things. I know they beat Scooby, your Rangers yesterday, but give up 9 goals in Montreal. Buffalo, Randy, beat your Capitals. Washington's won 5-2 the last 9 games. Detroit, I know, we follow it to an extent with Detroit here. They've got some weird, coach had a few different things he said last week, but they pretty much had some clunkers. They do get a point in Pittsburgh, but for you guys, what do you make of these 3 teams that really controlled their own destiny weeks ago and look like one of them is probably, or if maybe all of them are going to fall on the outside looking in?
It's something. So with Washington, Tom Wilson's suspension didn't help because you saw Trouba whack them with Gory Scooby in the face and he gets the fine, but Wilson does. But listen, they didn't play good. I think they just ran out of steam. The injuries caught up with them, and it really just didn't all work out at the end. They got cold the wrong time. Philadelphia, Carter Hart absent, I think, played a huge part of that with that scandal because you're losing your top goalie and he's done. And you can't really replace it. You don't know what's going to happen. It killed them. Detroit, they were heating. They just went. Everything just
That was
collapsed
a team
with them.
I think that was expected to do better this year, though. There was a team that they brought Kane in. He chose them. I think it's a team that's been building for a while, and this was kind of the year if they were going to make the move. And if they're all tied with 85 points. Pittsburgh's 1 point ahead of them, so it could change. But realistically, 2, if not all of these teams are going to be on the outside looking in. And I would say that Detroit's got to be the biggest disappointment of the 3. No,
For sure. Definitely. You know, and this is what makes it all the more frustrating over here as a Devils fan, because if you actually think about it, the Devils have the 7th most wins in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Devils are still only a few points
have
behind these
the
teams.
Devils have an opportunity if they beat Philadelphia on Saturday and if they beat the Islanders on Monday. They finish the season with 40 wins. Winning 40 games
is
a
very hard thing.
Is usually nothing to sneeze at, even though really it's only half your games essentially. But the Devils also have the 3rd most regulation losses in the Eastern Conference, and so the lack of overtime games, or the lack of basically the Islanders benefiting off of the loser point.
That's it. That's exactly what I said 5 minutes ago. 27 losses only, in a way, saved this team. I mean, that's
it really did, because let's just take 5 games away. So the Devils are 38, 32, and 10. They're at 86 points. They're tied with Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Boom, they're right there. And the concern really stemmed from last year's postseason. Because if you kind of notice the trend during the postseason last year for the Devils, when they lost, they got their ass kicked. And when they won, they won a close game here.
Which is, I think, Washington's problem, Randy, this year, right? Washington lost a lot of blowouts, but won the close games.
If they lost, it was just ugly, especially some of the later games to Toronto. They played teams like Colorado. I'm trying to think a week ago against Buffalo. Like, they just got blown out of the water, where definitely it sucked that Nick Backstrom's not done. Again, Kuznetsov could not rebound, and they don't have a top center, but just a team that doesn't have the right pieces, and when they don't play well, all hell breaks loose.
And some other games of note for everybody that are important. Boston, Pittsburgh, huge game for both teams. Now, a lot of implications there. 8 o'clock. Detroit and Toronto. Another game, a lot of implications there. Red Wings are very much, fighting for a spot. Toronto's fighting for position. Lightning and Capitals, Randy. I mean, Capitals need a win. Desperately. 5:30 p.m.
I think it was done yesterday, but if they lose tomorrow, then
they're alive. I mean, they're alive mathematically.
By the way, it's
the team that I think is done.
It's unbelievable what Pittsburgh is done.
And why do you say that on Philadelphia?
Well, they only got 2 games left.
True.
And they're already what? I mean, they're only a point out.
They got to win against the Rangers. Keeps you alive. You got to win against the Rangers. You finally won in regulation, but Philadelphia was firmly in 3rd place for most of the year, if I recall correctly. Philadelphia was just in firm control, and they slid. And I wonder what happens with Tortorella, because he just never has a long shelf life. He's always.
But you know what happened? I don't think ownership is going to be fooled. They were not a good team. No. I mean, nobody expected them to be any good this year. So then them being in 2nd and 3rd place most of the year kind of came as a surprise to a lot of people. So this kind of fading at the end of the season was more expected. What I'm more impressed with is how the hell did Sidney Crosby drag that team to the postseason?
I was going to say that was my next point. How did the Penguins pull this off?
I think they're going to get that second wild card. I really do.
They could still pass the Islanders, because they still play the last day in UBS. So, I mean, that game
on Wednesday. Right.
That's a lot of implications. Listen, Pittsburgh has a tough schedule. And the Islanders, by the way, Devils have played well against the Islanders this year. So, the Islanders still, they're not out of the woods yet. So,
Monday night won't be easy for the Islanders.
No, it's not going to be easy. I mean, if you're the Islanders,
even with Jack Hughes out, the Devils played rather inspired the other night against Toronto.
The Devils have played better since the deadline. I mean, the Devils have, this is still a team that has 81 points. It's a team that's not rolled over.
And it's the goaltending. It really is.
That was the issue
Jake Allen, to me, Jake Allen is a guy who actually is under contract for next season, and to me, he's the perfect backup. And if the Devils go get a number 1 in the offseason, Jake Allen's a guy that you could ride the hot hand with him for a little while, but ultimately he's going to be considered one of the top backups in the NHL. And if you have a 1-2 tandem of, I don't know if they'd be able to pull off a Saros trade. I don't know. They're going to try to go after Markstrom yet again.
DK, I see your eyes lighting up there.
Stay away.
Randy, I wanted to ask you quickly, and I promise we'll spend about 5 more minutes on hockey, and I'll get a quick thought on Rob Maraska and Alan Michaels. I got to get to the closing thoughts, but Vancouver, you concerned, Randy? You're out there, and Vancouver struggled a little bit of late, and They sort of get helped a little bit today with the Edmonton not getting the 2 points, but Vancouver is not going into the playoffs with momentum. It's a young team dealing with a couple of injuries. What do you say there real quick?
Tomorrow's game against Edmonton gonna really define a lot, because if they lose and I think Dallas wins, then they're guaranteed to play Nashville in the first round. And that
DK, your Nashville Predators, nobody wants to play your Nashville Predators right
even
now.
them playing LA, Nashville, or Vegas, the Canucks I feel are going to struggle because they're not.
Well, Vegas though is not a lock either to be in the playoffs. St. Louis.
St. Louis lost, and I think they're winning 4-1 today. So if Vegas hangs on, they're
okay. They clinched because I know going into it was a 3-point difference. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
So yeah, I don't think physically.
Yeah, Carolina won, and Vegas is up. Correct. Vegas is
very
up 5.
thin, and the goaltending. Thatcher Demko who had I think a good year, but sometimes there's been some inconsistencies a little bit. But I think his health is going to be a question because he's been out for about a month. And then you just look at Nashville, where some of these Nashville guys, you have the likes of UC Saros, Ryan O'Reilly.
And that was a team, you think about it with Nashville, they were actually on the outside looking into the playoff spot weeks ago. And now look at what the season they had.
And this is Philip Forsberg. This is a team that
9 playoff appearances in 10 years. That's a pretty damn good job for that team.
Vancouver, other than the likes of guys like JT Miller, Teddy Bluger, Ian Cole, a lot of this team hasn't been in the playoff, and it's a different. And playoff hockey is different. You can
I think that would be one point that if you think about the Islanders kind of finding a way, should they make it, the Islanders have the playoff experience. They've been to the conference finals a couple times. They made it last year. They grinded out Trotz's first year. So they have the experience, and that may carry them over the finish line. I mean, that's a good point.
I don't know, Tom. Playing Vancouver, New York, and Carolina, those are some different teams. I'd be scared in the East.
Well, obviously, look, the Islanders, I'm just about making the playoffs. I think if the Islanders play Carolina, listen, I don't think any of the teams, and we'll get to a couple of things real quick in NHL, but I think whoever makes it between these spots, obviously it's Islanders, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Washington, Philadelphia. I don't think any of them really are going to do any long damage in the playoffs. Islanders can't score. Pittsburgh, I mean, what a job by Crosby. I mean, the league is praying Crosby makes the playoffs. They want to see Crosby in there, and you might even get a potential matchup there between Boston and Pittsburgh. And Crosby, again, by the way, now is 10th all-time in scoring in NHL history. Just amazing job he's done. And also, Austin Matthews, I believe, is 4 goals away from 70. 70 hasn't been done since 1992. 2 now. He got 2 tonight?
No, 2 last night.
2. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's
got
2 last night against the Devils.
He's got 2 more to go.
So he's got 2 more to go. And, DK, how you feeling real quick on the Predators, by the way? I got to ask you.
I'm loving it. I mean, they had a little hiccup, but I mean.
And thank you, by the way, for last week, by the way. Thank you very much, DK.
Oh, yeah, no problem. But,
well, the Islanders I was referring to.
Oh, yeah, I know. But, yeah, a little hiccup in the road, but I think they're still going to power through, make a nice little playoff push, hope they can make it far. And, it's always what you want at the end of the season is the cup. So, hopefully we can finally bring it home.
The teams that are playing have the most momentum. Listen, some other matchups of note, Winnipeg and Colorado. Boy, Winnipeg has been playing well. Colorado, what a doozy of a matchup that is. I mentioned Lightning and Capitals. Detroit and Toronto, must win for Detroit, must win for Washington. You've got Vegas and Colorado, Sunday 3:30. I think that's the TNT game. You got also coming up on Monday, you have Predators and Penguins. Boy, DK, I'm rooting for you for those Predators. Go Predators. I mean, I got to get my Predators. I got to find my Predators jersey somewhere, hopefully.
I'll send you one.
Thank you very much. That's why we know TSF takes. Bruins and Capitals. That's another tough schedule for you, Randy. Islanders, Devils, not going to be easy. Islanders never play well in Prudential Center. We'll see there. Montreal is playing a little bit, could be a spoiler for Detroit. So those are some of the games of note. We'll certainly see what happens there. But, okay, so we've got the hockey story. I'll let you hang on here, Randy, for a few minutes. But let me go to Alan Michaels and Rob Maraska. Anything else you guys want to share before we get to final thoughts? Anything else, sports stories you guys want to bring up? Because you guys, I know, trying to follow this up here, kind of like trying to have your, almost like a tennis match where you're trying to follow the tennis ball and your eyes are
I know what's going on in hockey.
No, I got you, but I'm trying to work everybody in. That's what we're doing on Sportzwire. Anything you want to share before I get to Alan Michaels?
Oh, yeah, real quick. I just wanted to mention the passing of New York Mets Hall of Fame catcher.
Jerry Grody, right?
Jerry Grody,
Yeah,
age
tough
81,
one.
69 world champs. I mean, listen, he was a great defensive catcher, light hitter. He was so good as a defensive catcher that Johnny Bench said if he was on the same team with Jerry Grody, he'd be playing third base and would be catching. So that's how much he was respected. Two-time All-Star. Like I said, 69 Met world
73.
champion, 73 National League champion, caught Seaver, Kuzman, Matlack. I mean, Nolan Ryan. Just think about the guys.
McGraw.
And he also, Chris, he was also in the World Series as a Dodger when they lost to the Yankees twice in a row, 77.
And Fritz
78.
Peterson, I think, passed away too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did today. He did yesterday or today, I think, Chris.
Yeah.
We know about him, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, Jerry Grody's a sad one, and I think we think of him differently than O.J. Simpson. We kind of had some laugh about O.J. Simpson, but yeah, Jerry Grody, Met great, definitely Mets Hall of Fame, and great defensive catcher, prototype, had a great arm, and did a great number of things. And we certainly want to give our thoughts and prayers to him. And for you, Alan Michaels, anything else you want to share on the sports side before we let everybody get some closing thoughts in? Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of throw a hot take out there.
Oh, you love the hot,
just like last week.
Good one.
Love the hot takes. I'm just gonna say I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off. I think the Philadelphia Eagles championship window this past offseason is officially closed. I don't think they are championship material. I don't think they're going to be anywhere close to championship material. That they have a great young team, but they lost a lot of key veteran pieces that was the glue of that team. I don't think they're going to be nowhere near as good as they were the past couple of seasons.
So the Texans and the Eagles get worse with Diggs and Barkley. That's what I'm saying.
You just spit.
You add Saquon, you lose.
Are you
two
warming
offensive
up for
linemen.
tomorrow's podcast where you guys talk all things football? Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to kind of warm as the numbers
Trying
all
to be a
of a sudden?
villain.
Alan Michaels, the numbers went up like 7 people all of a sudden. You said something, and they were like, "He said what again?" I think people all of a sudden were like, maybe went off the show and they came back on the show because they were like, Alan Michaels last week said the Texans aren't going to be as good, and now you say the Eagles aren't going to be as good.
Okay.
What next are you going to come up with? You're going to eat maybe more crystals than Big T?
The Chiefs are done too. You go ahead and chalk them up.
No, they're gonna three-peat. I call it right now.
All right, here's a hot take.
All right, let's go for it here. Now we're
Here's a quick hot take. If this does happen and the Eagles, let's say, don't make the playoffs this year, Bill Belichick would be their coach next season. How's that?
Yeah, I think Sirianni would be gone. I don't know about Belichick, but
I think it was
Sirianni's
like he was
gone.
tenuous this year. I mean, he got a pass.
About
probably.
Vrabel.
No, I don't think they're gonna miss playoffs,
But you know what it is though, Chris. Even if the Eagles fall off and end up like 9-8, how are they still not one of the 7 teams in the NFC?
Right.
I think
No,
they'll make
I
playoffs,
don't.
they're just
I'm not
not.
agreeing with him. I'm just saying if it does happen, I could see Belichick.
Where
You
they
know
finished
who I
last
think is
year.
actually bound to more fall off in the NFC East? I think it's the Cowboys.
There you
Yeah.
go.
I'm a little concerned about where their direction's at.
Right.
Yeah,
Are they
it's a
signing
team that-
Prescott or
I don't know if they are. It doesn't. There's not really one indication one way or the other. But I mean, the Cowboys have a lot of issues. I mean, if you just quickly just looking at the NFC, I mean, you're pretty much counting 2 teams in the West, right? You think
Yep.
the 49ers and the Rams, right? They're both going to be locked in playoff teams.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They-
Rams strong second
McVay
half.
pretty much always has his team good.
Yeah.
We know how good the 49ers are, right? I mean, the North, hell, the Bears are going to be probably really good.
You think they-
Even with Williams as a rookie, they have a lot of talent. Detroit,
Green
I
Bay.
don't think-
Yeah,
I
Green
don't
Bay.
think Detroit's taking
Allen's
a
Green
step
Bay
back.
Packers.
Green Bay should be pretty solid. They made the postseason a year ago. The South is going to be competitive because of Kirk Cousins in Atlanta and the Buccaneers with Mayfield. They still got a lot of talent on
New
that.
Orleans with Carr. That's going to be competitive.
And New Orleans with Carr could be in the mix as well. So
They won 9 games last year. I mean, they won 9.
No Michael Paul.
True, but they still won 9. They're in a division that's going to be jockeying, and you got the East. I mean, Washington's going to be Washington. The Giants, who knows? And
It honestly kind of looks like could look like the NFC East could be the weakest division next year.
could be. I mean, maybe that should have been your hot take, Alan Michaels. Instead, that should have been your hot take.
No, I'm gonna stick to what I said.
You did?
Cowboys are
Yeah,
undefeated team.
Before we get to closing thoughts, were you trying to maybe test out why people should tune in tomorrow for the show? Is that what it was?
Hey, crazier things have been said.
On this platform?
Yeah,
No,
last week.
I mean, we've had so many. Listen, did you see Anthony Steele was back yesterday once again? I mean, he was actually
giving a
doing
little
another
tease out.
promotion. So what's that?
He's just giving a little tease on his podcast. I
That's
think
what,
that's a good idea.
and we love it, and we're obviously
Yes.
we want all the podcasts to do well on Sportswire because we also play a lot of them, like Randy's show, Justin's show in the past, and we have your Liftoff Jets in the rotation this weekend. Talking Rivals I've listened to several times throughout the week. Sportswireradio.org via the Listen Live button. So I would say this: the podcast you guys have, if you ever give me the audio version, we can play it on the radio as well. So I could hear you guys at like 2:00 in the morning when I'm just, sitting around and, hear you guys hear hot take after hot take. So, keep that in mind. So, all right. So anything else you want to share? Anything else, Big T, before we sign off? I see you shaking your head. You want to say something, Big T?
Not particularly, but I will bring up, man, I don't know why, which me and Scoob were talking about it before we got on here tonight. The free NFL free agency list is still super, super deep, man. I'm not sure what we're thinking on who's going to sign who, but the biggest worry that I have is I'm not sure why Micah Hyde hasn't been signed to a team yet. From what I've seen on his list, he's only asking for $3.7 million a year annually, and I think he's still a pretty good safety, man. I don't know where these guys are going to go, but I do know that the free agency is still super deep. Man, he's asking, I think he can be very good, don't get me wrong, but if you ask me between which one I want between Simmons and Micah Hyde, I'd rather pay like a third of Justin Simmons' contract to Micah Hyde than actually have Simmons on there. But I still think Simmons can be good. I just don't know where he's going to land.
I want to say thank you. Now we're at 152 people now watching us on social media. 150 people, they like what we're doing. So if you like what we're doing, go follow us. Yep. Yeah,
Mikey's hot take, man. That's what it is. Mikey's.
Well, we were going down, and all of a
take.
sudden we went up. Maybe that's what it is, Alan Michaels. You were trying to stay trendy. Maybe.
Hey, if I'm any team, I'm not picking up Micah Hyde for real though. I think dude just needs to go ahead and retire.
You're just a hater tonight,
At
aren't
this
you?
point, I'm just calling it how I see it, man. I'm just calling it how I see it.
But he's been such a big injury risk over the last couple of years.
Yeah, that dude.
I want to say this to you, Alan Michaels, specifically. If the time comes when if you return to a wrestling ring one day, I hope that you bring this same charisma if you return to a wrestling ring. That's all I'm saying. Alan Michaels.
Hey, call me Justin Bieber. You just never say never.
Well, you know what? I tell you what. That's why people, if you were out there, because you seem to like what we're doing, hit the sub button for TSF Takes. Hit the sub button for Scooby Stoney. Hit the sub button for CP7NY. Liftoff Jets, Talking Rivals, Armor Roscoe, Randy Dillon. He was actually doing two sides of the aisle here. He was doing wrestling and hockey for us. Big T, hit them all, everybody. I want to say hello to, speaking to actually somebody, Alan Michaels, I want to bring him up before we get to closing thoughts. A guy that was a colleague of yours, a co-worker of yours, actually once upon a time. He's the hardcore champion. He's our hardcore king who successfully retained his championship. Mr. Atomic Titan, big football fan, by the way. And Atomic Titan missed the hot take that you said about the Philadelphia Eagles and their struggles not making the playoffs this year. But Mr. Titan, we want to say hello to you and congratulations on your victory over defeating Jacob Young. Although Manny Cobra's back in action in TBW, but Alan Michaels wanted to make sure that your old colleague Atomic Titan got to be getting a big shout out. So hopefully, you just, you happy with the shout out?
Yeah, man.
No comment.
Great to see him, man.
No comment.
No, I'm cool with everybody, man.
I know that, but
even people who wear turtlenecks,
I like the turtlenecks, by the way.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with the turtleneck.
Hey.
See, we know our audience.
Why is your neck getting cold? I mean, you must have a fragile
because
neck.
The weather's been cold lately. That's why the weather's been cold at times. Hasn't warmed up yet. It's a smart move. He's protecting himself. He's protecting himself from allergies. He's protecting himself from cold, maybe COVID. He's protecting himself from. He's being safe. He's taking precautions. Like from your hot takes. And Atomic Titan said for you to hit him up.
I will. I'm just currently busy man. I am busy man. You know, when you're the trendsetter, you know. You got
I
a lot
thought
of
I
things
was your
going
agent
on.
anyway, by the way. So I thought I was representing you still. So there you go. See, that's my job is I'm your client. You're your client. That's what I am. You're my client. So I wanted to make sure that was put out there. Okay, so obviously we'll come back. Let's get to some closing thoughts here. I'll go with you first, Rob Maraska. I'm going to give you the floor. You want to one more time announce your contest winner. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Well, everybody else get some closing thoughts here as well. But you'll go first for us this time, Rob Maraska.
Yeah, I just want to one more time congratulate Howard Hang of Bayside, New York.
For a real name, Howard Hang?
Yeah, his name's
Howard Hang
on Twitter, so I guess that is his name.
He wasn't like on a Howard Stern show once upon a time. Howard Hang.
I don't know. He might have been. But I'm going to have another contest coming up. Probably going to be a Mets one since I had a Yankee one already. So we'll see. We'll see what happens and what it's going to be. Looking forward to this weekend series with Kansas City. Mets won tonight, as we know. Kansas City's
weather's supposed to be nice here Sunday. Tomorrow's supposed to be windy. What a surprise. Sunday's supposed to be a nice day out there, so get to the ballpark Sunday.
That's about it. Another fun show, guys.
Yeah.
Love talking sports with you guys. You can get me on Twitter at @RMaraska, Facebook Rob Maraska.
Absolutely. The viewership is up, and that's what counts. People like what the job we're doing, and we'll continue to do it. Randy, I'm going with you next because you actually had closing thoughts, but I'll give you one more crack. And going to have a lot more hockey talk coming up. Obviously, Islanders hopefully hang on, and Rangers will be a part of things, and Vancouver is back in it, and interesting stories for sure in the NHL. And obviously Arizona, we'll see what happens with Matthews hitting 70, Crosby, a lot of great stories. The league's got some great stuff going on here, but I give you the floor once again, Randy, and hopefully maybe your Capitals will find a way to sneak in and you'll be a happy man. Canucks and Capitals in the playoffs. Keep your fingers crossed.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure to come on double duty. I'll keep it quick because I gave my closing thoughts on hockey. Yep, my Capitals, they desperately need to win, but I said it last week. I'll say it again. You win, you're in. Whoever wins these last majority, if the Penguins and Islanders go 3-0, it's a done deal. If they go 0-3, the other teams have a chance, but it's pretty much in their hands right now. And just again, Sidney Crosby, what a year he's had carrying the Penguins. Austin Matthews hitting 70. Alex Ovechkin passing Mark.
How about Kucherov? Looks like he's going to have the Art Ross this year, and I think that's a great story. But Tampa Bay's had a great second half, by the way.
He's had as well. It's just been a great year, and the playoffs are just going to ramp it up, and it's going to be great. Just finishing up the Devils episode with Neil Villapiano. I apologize for the delay.
And Neil's going to be. I'm on his podcast actually to induct him into the Hall of Fame coming up next week. So he's joining us in the Hall of Fame. So we're going to bring Neil. Well, I can't say bring him here. I'm going to go on there and announce he's in the Hall of Fame. That'll be fun, right?
Well, congratulations to Neil. And listen, it'll be an interesting time with the playoffs. But want to hear more about my hockey or wrestling takes? Follow me at Twitter at Randy Dillon. Dillon DHILLON. Always a pleasure to be on Sportswire and with the guys, Tom.
Absolutely, Randy. You're welcome to hang out for the last 5 minutes. Whatever you want to do is cool with me. DK, I'm going with you next. Want to give you some closing thoughts and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. And I'm definitely rooting for the Predators on Monday. I definitely am counting on you Monday. So anything else you want to? Well, good. That's why I like having you on. And anything else you want to plug, share, or say, and the floor is yours.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Philip Forsberg tonight got the hat trick, gets the most goals in single season history for the Nashville Predators. Just wanted to shout him out for that, 46 on the year.
And he has 600 career points right now. Did he pass 600 or was it 500 or 600?
Let me see if he's close. Let me see.
I was listening to that the other day, and he came up with that points-wise. So, yeah, he's had a great second half.
He just passed 600 not too long ago.
There you go. I'm on top of hockey.
Yeah, there you go. No more than me right now. Look at that.
I really listen to more hockey. I listened to like 10 hours of hockey talk in the last 2 days. I really like it.
Yeah, I need to get on.
I've heard enough about wrestling. I've watched enough wrestling. I could basically memorize it. I was like, let me get to some hockey. So anything else, DK, you want to share?
I'm going to say the same thing I've said for the last 2 weeks. Bet the house. I'm the guy. I think he's right above me on the screen. This guy right here with the hat. Bet the house on it.
Appreciate that.
He's talking about Big T because I see Big T smiling because, Randy, we've got our competitive eating contest May 24th, 10 o'clock Eastern time, and it's going to be Big T versus Alan Michaels. And,
Hey, if you need some commentators, I'm available.
we got you in, Randy. Got you in. We got a lot of people interested in that. That's going to be one for the ages. So definitely, you're on it.
Warming up and preparing for this big match.
Well,
that's every day for me.
Well, I heard
It's a lifestyle.
Listen, Alan Michaels, I heard through the grapevine that there's somebody else that's apparently opining to be in this contest, but they're apparently wanting to test a pack of crystals out themselves to decide whether they're going to enter. So who knows? But we're supposed to have a weigh-in live on Sportswire before this. So I think we're supposed to have a weigh-in right the week prior. Is that what we're supposed to do?
The week prior, yes.
All right. So we got actually, I think, 5 weeks to the weigh-in. So
if anybody wants to challenge them, they have until the weigh-in.
Yes, that person actually, Alan knows who this person is, by the way. Alan definitely knows who this person is, and maybe I'll share it off the air with him. So when we get off the air, Mr. Titan.
Bring him on.
Oh, he's been on here many times on Sportswire. I can guarantee you, he's definitely a familiar face. He's actually in the Hall of Fame.
Is it Shane?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not Armageddon Shane Dawson. I'll tell it to you off the air. I promise you. When you hear it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, wow! I didn't know he's thinking about it." But that's just a clue. It's a clue. But DK,
I have an idea.
Well, I'll tell it to you guys off the air. But let's go to next. I'm going to Alan. You think about that. You're going last. Scooby Stoney, I'm going with you next for closing thoughts. What else would you like to plug, share, or say? And this was fun. So.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun, man. I enjoy talking to you guys. Enjoy talking to Randy, Rob, Chris.
We got a great group. I'm so happy.
We got a great
group. What a great team we got on Sportswire.
But the last thing I'm going to bring up, man, I don't know if anybody watches any Brooklyn basketball this year, but we got to get Cam Thomas some help, man. I tweet about this maybe once or twice a week, and I think people kind of just see it as, it's a average team with average talent, and Cam is just this one shining star, and it's like every time this kid goes off for 40 30, whatever it may be, and we got other people on the team like Mikal Bridges. I don't know what happened to him from last year to this year, man. Like, we got to figure it out, whether it's trading some things around, get a new roster, get a couple new pieces in the draft or something, man. We got to get Cam some help, because at this point, we've seen that Cam can do it. Well, let's build around Cam. But if you like any sports takes, make sure you check us out on TSF Takes Podcast tomorrow, and check me out on YouTube.
Yes, tag me for the podcast, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. I'm on the air at 10, so I've got some time. I'm going to listen to you guys before I go on the air tomorrow night.
So, yeah, that'd be it for me, man. I mean, just it pains me to see Cam Thomas ball his ass off just for the team to lose by 10, 15, 20, or even just a 5-point loss, and Cam's got 40 points shooting well.
Yeah,
I can't do it every day.
Disappointing season for the Nets.
Try being a Detroit fan.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not.
My condolences, DK. My condolences to you. Sorry. That's all I could really say, but my condolences to you. But hopefully the Red Wings will at least make the playoffs. We'll have to see. But thank you. And TSF Takes Podcast tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern time. So be there or be square, and you guys tag me in that. And also, if you got the audio version, would like to play it on the internet radio. So if you get me the audio version of the pod, I can play that on our radio station. So we'll take care of that. Chris, want to go with you next for closing thoughts? I'm looking forward to the Liftoff Jets. As I mentioned, I've listened to the Talking Rivals this week. I enjoyed it. Had a lot more of a variety of talk on the radio. Last week was all about WrestleMania. This week we gave everybody a crack once again, which is what we do here. But I want to give you the closing thoughts here next, and the floor is yours, and fire away.
Thank you, Tom. Guys, great show as always. Looking forward to Rangers Islanders tomorrow.
Big one.
And you know what? And the Yankees against the Indians, it's basically the two best teams in the league right now, right? So it's kind of cool to see that. Hopefully they could take care of that series. 2 out of 3 would be nice. And we'll be catching up on it on Monday. Patrick and I will be doing the Talking Rivals Monday at some point. And Charmin and I will be talking about the Jets on Wednesday, and keep talking about the draft coming up. You know, it's a couple of weeks away. I'm really excited. Jets are in a really good spot.
We'll
roster
spend
is
some time on it next week's show. We'll spend time on it because we're getting
Cool.
closer to next week. We'll definitely spend some time on the draft for sure.
Yeah, no, we definitely got a lot. It's going to be a fun draft because, yeah, the quarterbacks are going to go quick early, but then after that, it's a lot of mystery going on the next, bunch of picks. So going to see a lot of trades as well. So it should be fun. But yeah, follow me on Twitter, CP7NY, at Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets. And we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. And if you're on Twitter, which a lot of you are watching us, again, follow us on all these platforms. You like what you're hearing from us, go over and cross over and support us. I can't stress that enough. Big T, I'm going to break it up. I'll go to Justin next and then Alan. I don't want you guys to go back to back. I want to save some of that for next month for the eating contest and the weigh-in. So I'm going with you next, Big T, for closing thoughts. And anything else you want to plug, share, say, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, a couple things. So I'll start off with the first one. I don't know if anybody else seen it, but Brandon Ayuk unfollowing the Niners on Instagram. I don't know how deep anybody else is looking into that, but I'm assuming that man wants to get paid. Also assuming that he probably won't be with the Niners next season. If that's the case, does anybody have a certain destination they think where he may go?
It's a good one.
Man, it should
Obviously,
be a lot.
It would
of
have to be done by
teams
trade
for him right now. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of Jags. I've been hearing a lot of Jags on the phone.
I can see him go crazy there.
But I don't know. Then again, like, people don't like I think it depends on how much Brandon Ayuk makes. Does anybody know how much? Is it anything?
He'll probably get the
crazy?
20. Is he still under contract?
I don't know.
I can see
Bills. He
Bills.
still has a year left on the contract.
It'd be big for the Bills to get someone like that.
It depends on what he's worth. I mean, if he's not worth the top five,
that makes all that money. So I don't know. I know teams don't like to pay two wide receivers all that much. The trend doesn't usually work out well when you have to pay a lot of money between two guys.
I would think if they're moving him, they're not going to want to move him in the NFC to a rival. So it's got to be AFC, right? If you're going to move him, it has to be AFC.
Potentially Vegas. They
Yeah.
just lost Jacoby, I believe, right? You do Vegas with Devontae and Brandon Ayuk. That becomes a good spot
Buffalo
for any
makes
quarterback.
sense, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking Buffalo don't have a big name there right now.
Buffalo makes sense. They'd have probably some maneuverability. That's a good one. That's a good point. That's something we can certainly talk about as it gets closer for sure. Good point, Big T.
Absolutely. And the last one, just to wrap it up real quick, man. I do have a little hot take myself. I don't think it's going to be as hot as Allen Michaels, but as for the top three quarterbacks in the first round, man, I think obviously everybody knows who's going to go in order. Boom, boom, boom. Drake maybe in the last. Caleb Williams probably being the first. Man, I think after the top three go, there's a good chance where we've seen in past years. I know some teams need quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. As for what the media is displaying it out to be, I don't think it's as strong. After the first three go, I think there's a good chance, starting with J.J. McCarthy, there's a good chance these guys can slip into the second round. I may be the only person that sees that, but some of these teams, I mean, these guys like Minnesota and potentially New York, like these are teams that have to trade up for a quarterback. Right. And me personally, I don't know if J.J. McCarthy is the guy that you want to trade up into a lottery pick for. That could just be me, but we'll have to see when it comes down to draft day.
Interesting. They definitely talk a lot about that.
If JJ makes it out of the top, I don't know, 12 or 13.
All right. Well, we'll
that sounds
see
like that's right wrong.
We'll definitely talk about that on next week's show. We'll definitely spend a good amount of time on the draft and we'll work everything in. So thank you, Big T, for that. And you continue your training for crystals in the competition. Justin, I'm going with you next as Alan's last on closing thoughts. I'm giving you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? No. So congratulations. I see you're engaged now, by the way, Justin. I want to give you a big congratulations. So obviously looking forward to what the future is for you there on that. But until then, want to give you the floor. Anything else you want to plug, share, say? Fire away.
Yeah, it's gonna be short and sweet tonight. I'm looking forward to the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. Unfortunately, my team not going to be involved, but I think it's going to be a really fun spring sports season. And congratulations to UConn on winning the national championship yet again,
back-to-back championship.
Yeah, so that's really about all I got.
South Carolina won last week, beat Iowa in women's. Certainly that was a big thing. So great stuff there. Yep.
You can follow me on Twitter at JGNelly12 and on Instagram at JGNelly91.
Excellent. Good to have you back, Justin. We always love having you here with us. So it makes us a bigger unit, and I think that's what the viewers seem to want. They like us bigger and better, and that's what we are with you with us. Certainly, I've kind of made it where each and every week that you, Alan Michaels, will be the last one to get the closer. It's kind of like the guy that used to talk about having confidence. You're the guy because you've actually been in front of thousands of people, so you know what it's like to be in a main event. You know what it's like, to certainly bring ratings. So you've done that for us. So I'm giving you the floor. Certainly not the best for last, but we definitely saved one of the biggest for last in you. And I turn it over to you, Alan Michaels. We're changing lanes. We're closing out this evening with you. And anything else you want to plug, share, or say, the floor is yours.
Gotcha. I just want to take a minute and talk to the 161 people listening to us right now. And welcome back to week 2 of Alan Michaels slanders Kirk Cousins. In my life watching football, I have seen Kirk Cousins line up behind the guard more times than I've seen him win a playoff game. And that is straight fact right there. You can look it up.
Wow. Yeah.
He's lined up behind the guard 3 times. He's won 1 playoff game. I'm just saying you gotta throw a guy $90 million plus. Who has that kind of record? I'm just saying. I personally wouldn't.
Wow.
But,
Alan Michaels.
Not a Falcon fan.
Tonight. You certainly know your audience, Alan Michaels.
But podcast tomorrow, TSF Takeover. So be on Twitch, YouTube. Try to get it up on TikTok. It's gonna be a lot of fun tomorrow. I'm excited.
Wait. I can't wait. I'm so happy for you guys. And like I said, the audio version, if you can give me the audio version as well, we'll play it throughout the weekend on our internet radio station too. So we really want to, really promote that. So that we'll make sure.
Apparently I'm the underdog in the eating contest. But you know what? I've been an underdog my whole damn life. And I'm going to rise to the occasion. I'm going to take them down. Okay, crystals are getting put down.
This ain't Shane Davidson you're doing. You're doing with Big T, who's a real eater.
Yeah, I'm cutting the promo right now. It's going down.
Well, you know what?
On the 24th, on Sportswire. I'm going to put the crystals
in a national
down.
audience. You got 161 people here. You got a lot of people watching us right now. You get a live national audience, worldwide audience, as a matter of fact, because we're heard worldwide. We have people in England, people in Australia, Japan, Canada, other places. So let's see. You're on the clock, Alan Michaels. You're on the clock. This is, not going to be like the Stay in Trendy segment with Gage Flair. This is Big T. This is real. This is going to,
Don't forget about that bet, man. I'm not putting on no Packer shit. Promise you that.
I tell you what, this is why you got to watch these guys. You got to watch them tonight, 9 p.m. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Just check them out. Follow these guys. TSF Takes. Alan, you certainly gave us the hot takes, and we'll see if, you don't have to change lanes and continue to say what you preach. But this was some show for the ages. And I want to thank, obviously, our coach, Chris Craven, who was here driving, made a appearance here with us. I want to thank Randy Dillon for doing the best of both worlds. Alan Michaels did a little bit for that. Also, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter was with us. DK, of course, does a great job. And Chris Pizea of the Talking Rivals and the Liftoff Jets. My tongue is dry, you could see. Rob Maraska, contest man, longest tenured analyst. Scooby Stoney, also movie reviewer, lover of all things sports, optimistic Jets fan for sure. Maybe he's got something in the water that I need to know about, but he is also part of the TFSF Takes, the man that's considered the heavy favorite in the contest for our first ever competitive eating contest. No, not Alan Michaels. That would be Big T, Chicago Bears aficionado, and Mr. Parlay Man. And certainly to close things out for us, also the man with the TSF Takes, former main eventer once upon a time in Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. Got my TBW shirt on, by the way. No clue there with you, Alan Michaels, but you're also an independent artist from Nashville, Tennessee. We'll see if you can show why you should be the favorite rather than the heavy underdog in our first ever competitive eating contest, May 24th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on all Sportswire radio platforms. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters. And if you're on sportswireradio.org, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, I'm here at 10 o'clock I'm going to be on the call for a match that Justin Parsley and Michael Christian had. And we're going to have some guests, maybe a few people, Alan Michaels, you shared a locker room with and more. So hope that after you watch the TSF takes, come back to Sportswire Radio and watch me on the call do a bad job of calling a wrestling match, and we'll have some fun with that. But until then, I want to thank Randy Dillon, Justin Gianelli, DK, Chris Bizet, Rob Araska, Scooby Stoney, Big T, and Alan Michaels, and our coach, Chris Craven, for coming on here tonight. And also TBK, shout out for him for this podcast. Did a great job with it. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one, Liberation, there was Sportswire Radio, where all sports matters. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Thank you especially to everybody out there tonight watching. Also, shout out to our friend Angela Pink. Angela was watching us on Twitter, so we want to thank Angela. Also want to thank everybody in the comments. So thank you, everybody. We'll see everybody later.